Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
From the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
What up, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. Happy Wednesday, Thursday, or if you're watching this on the recording. First of all, thank you for supporting this content. I think we're doing something here that's completely unique, and I appreciate you guys. I have been listening to the feedback as well. I appreciate that as well in terms of trying to make the content better and more relevant for you guys. Okay, guys. Today we're going to do something a little bit different because there's a lot of new people who've been joining, following along. A lot of comments I see about the Sean Ryan fiasco, whatever you want to call it, the email. They're all asking, oh, what is gravitic propulsion? What is all this stuff that they're talking about? So we are going to spend a decent portion of the stream tonight just going through a brief overview of the history. So for all the hardcore people that are out there, some of this is going to be a recap for you. And I'm not going to go into all the nooks and crannies of every single engineer and what have you. There's a lot that are out there. I just want to give people an overview because I've had a lot of people asking me, like, what is all this? You know, and there are people that are, you know, probably in like the military that they know we have some advanced technology, but they haven't been directly exposed to it or like read in on it. And, you know, they potentially want to know, okay, what are we dealing with in this UFO exotic gravity technology stuff? So that's the main point of this live stream tonight. But also before we do that, I am going to, you know, talk about the current events related to the UFO phenomenon. And really, it's not even about UFOs anymore. It's really just about advanced technology that the government is hiding from us. That's the main thing that I mostly want to be talking about here. Okay, so first thing is that there hasn't been much discussion because the fires have been the big hubbub in LA, Southern California, where I used to live, actually. I used to live where those fires are going on right now. And, you know, I'm not trying to engagement farm off of it. I don't need to. In fact, I'm happy to be focusing on my normal job still. I've made a conscious choice that I'm focusing on that. Which is why you don't see more content from me. That may change in the future. I don't know. But my heart goes out to them. You lose everything in a fire, especially if you're not insured, and, you know, people's lives are being destroyed. California is a mess. I left California. Basically anywhere is better than California because it's just, you know, they take all your money and they don't really give you anything in relief. Like, did these people's houses get saved? No. You know, because they say they're going to, you know, put all this to prevent forest fires and to get more water, and they never fix anything. So that's about as far as my political take is going to go today, and mostly because I lived under Gavin Newsom directly for many, many, many years. So, and I know somebody was saying something about some UFO coming out of the fire. It's not compelling to me, guys. If you're watching my content, you're not like out there chasing the dragon anymore. When I mean chasing the dragon is like a lot of the people in the UFO community are looking for the next buzz, or like, oh, show me the next, you know, glowing light in the sky, or the next thing that's moving kind of in a weird way. great. You know, for me, once you've seen, okay, like what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about exactly how the propulsion systems work. I don't need to see any more UFOs in the sky or any other videos. And unless the video is like military grade video on par with the videos that we're going to be looking at, it's just not doing anything for me. It's not teaching me anything about how the technology works and how the physics works. So that's the main reason why you don't see me posting a lot of those videos. And again, I'm not in this for engagement farming. Instead, you're going to see me posting about stuff like the dynamic Casimir effect, where we're literally just pulling energy straight out of the vacuum. Pulling energy straight out of the vacuum. The truth is crazier than fiction. Also, real quick, people wonder, when is the Hal Puthoff Ashton 4 orbs hard truth going to happen? Guys, speak it into existence. Somebody who knows Hal Puthoff, tell him that he should do an interview with me. Tell him I'll go easy on him. Tell him I'll go easy on him because, you know, we know he's got the secret sauce. We know he's got it. He can't go to his grave with all that information in his head. So let me talk to him. That'd be awesome. Okay, just kidding, guys. Now, serious business. So first thing I want to point out is what are the other UFO people talking about? Like, a lot of people have judged me and said that, oh, you're being too mean to people. You're not winning people over. And I want you to think of, like, what would you do if you knew, like in the movies, where the person knows the future or what's going to happen, but they don't want to come off as crazy? What do you do? What is your play to get people aware of that information? I just want you to think about that perspective, because that's what we're dealing with respect to this technology that's out there. And after having seen those videos and having some concept of what we're talking about, how significant a discovery we're talking about here, which is this right here. After seeing this and going, wow, okay, this is actually possible, and researching this, I wonder, okay, what are all these people that are looking into this? Like, how close are they to finding the answers? And you look around the UFO community, and mostly nobody's close at all. Dr. Stephen Greer, who people ask me about, I think that he understands there's this crazy advanced technology, and he sees the implications of that. A lot of the rest of these people are just completely off the mark. And here's just one example. This is Ryan Graves. He's one of the people that was on the congressional hearing last year, right? I think he was with Commander Fravor. So a whistleblower came to an ASA regarding a mid-air collision between a Gulfstream jet and an unidentified metallic object that occurred at 27,000 feet on December 11th. It's like, okay, it may have had atypical characteristics. That's basically it. I'm concerned this is being downplayed by the FAA. This is what we're going to spend our time on here. A mid-air collision between a small Gulfstream airplane, a private jet basically, and some object in the sky, which we have no video of. We have nothing that we can, no reason to even believe this is related to UFO anything. And I just go, I'm not trying to judge too harshly, because I think Ryan Graves is probably a good guy, but that's what we're dealing with. That's what we're spending our time on. That's where UFO disclosure's at right now. We're not even close to where we need to be in terms of like the information we need to be aware of historically, and the types of physics and energy, not just energy levels, but types of energy production that we're capable of. So when you see me ripping on these people, this is part of the reason. I mean, they're just not over the mark at all. Like, we're well beyond like, oh, okay, there might be just some random things flying around in the sky. We're at the part where we're like, okay, we're going to figure out how this science works and we're going to disseminate it to the masses, give it back to the people. Now, Sean Ryan, I realized, and I went back and looked at a lot of his interviews. He basically only interviews people that are military. So now the whole story with Sean Ryan makes sense. Sean Ryan was not interested in talking to someone like me, who is a civilian, who is just, giving a story secondhand. Like Sean Ryan would talk to somebody like Lieutenant Commander Edward C. Lynn. That's who Sean Ryan would talk to. So I don't hold any grudges. Like, people can talk to whoever they want or not talk to whoever they want for whatever reasons. The crossover with Sean Ryan was that I thought, like, the whole black operations angle of MH370, like, that's a U.S. intel / military Navy operation that's happening on that plane. I thought that would be something that Sean Ryan would be interested in. That's how I thought we could, like, find common ground. What I realized listening to a lot of the replies in the last day, if you are not caught up to speed, the email sent by Matthew Livelsberger that Sean Ryan and Sam Shoemake got has now been confirmed by the FBI. Now, listen up closely, especially my conspiracy-minded people. Just because the FBI confirms it doesn't mean now all of a sudden it's fake, because we don't trust anything that the FBI says. Some people, you guys are trying too hard out there, right? The world's not black and white like that, and that's not even what happened in this scenario. The FBI was presenting a completely different narrative of the guy was totally wackadoo. He was totally crazy, and he just a big Trump supporter, and he wanted everybody to, like, rally around Trump. And then that letter, that email sent one day before the whole incident happened, presents a story where the guy was completely, like, seemed like he was all there and he was looking for help. Completely different narrative. So for the FBI to confirm that letter, really what it's doing is it's giving authenticity to the fact that he wrote that letter and that he really sent it to Sean Ryan, and Sean Ryan is not lying. Now, the weird part is this. So that letter, 99.9% that Matt Livelsberger wrote that email. Now, half of the email, do I still have it up? Yeah, I still have it up. Half of this email is just him talking about this drone situation. Oh, that's not the right one. Like half the email. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 paragraphs right here in the middle, all talking about Chinese anti-gravity drone situation. This is why you guys are here tonight. This is what everybody's interested in. The gravitic propulsion drones that China has potentially produced. And then at the end, he talks about more black ops right here. And apparently this letter has a password in it. Like this thing up here is a passcode. It's ISO prep. Some passcode these guys put in when they're in distress. Something like that. So from listening to the interactions on why Sean Ryan and Sam have been saying, they've been gloating about how they were right and how all the other people that doubted them were idiots. I never doubted Sean Ryan for 1 second. You guys can go back to the previous live streams. People were coming at me saying Sean Ryan's a CIA spook and, the emails are fake, blah, blah, blah. This fat guy on the internet debunked them or whatever. People were coming at me and saying that, and I never wavered. I said the emails were real from the beginning. So Sean Ryan can't say I wasn't on his side on this whole thing. I was on his side. But what I've realized from looking at the replies is they have no interest in the whole UFO, USAP, unacknowledged special access program access this guy claimed to have. And this whole story about we're in like a drone war, anti-gravity drone war with China is like exact same story that has been the prominent one coming out of the MH370 videos. Admittedly, that I've been pushing. I mean, yes, I'm the one pushing that story. So the fact there's so much crossover was wild. Sean Ryan probably has to wonder what's going on. And yes, now we've got the sad cat emojis in there. So, and I have no problem with Sean not wanting to talk to me or whatever. It's like we're still influencing them for sure. And more so, because I think that what happened with Sean Ryan is that now he's realized that nobody's got your back. All your friends in Washington or whatever are just fake ass friends. They're not going to do anything for you. And when you have something that's real, nobody wants to touch it. Everybody wants to discredit you. They want to try to tear you down. Nobody wants to help you out. Nobody in the media was doing stories about the Sean Ryan email thing. Nobody's doing stories about it. Just like nobody's done a single story about the MH370 videos. And they use the same method of disinformation as well. Now, I didn't have a bunch of FBI people I can line up and say, nope, all these people say the videos are real, right? But we're getting to that point. We're getting there. But that's basically what Sean Ryan did, is they attacked him. They said they faked the emails. Emails show all the hallmarks of fakeness, whatever. People made up a bunch of stories about him that they claimed that they were debunked. And it turned out all those excuses people had, they all had mundane reasons for why they were that way. The squiggly line, Sean Ryan literally just copy and pasted it into another format. That was actually most of the people's problems with the emails. So this goes to show that, like, when somebody presents you this idea of, oh, this thing was debunked by an expert, which is what happened with the Sean Ryan emails, sometimes that doesn't mean anything. Sometimes people are looking too far into things where there's just a normal explanation. Why does this thing look this way? Like people would say about the MH370 videos. Why is it in this rainbow thermal? Well, because they use rainbow thermal. People go, no, they don't. And when you find out, yes, they do. You're like, oh, okay. A lot of that stuff, guys. That's the lesson I think we should learn there. Now, we do need podcasters on our side. We do need them on our side. We're never going to hit critical mass with this information about zero-point energy-based technology unless we have the major podcasters on board with the idea. They don't have to be on board with MH370. They just have to be on board with this idea that we've got this free energy technology that's out there. Once they get on board with that, once that starts getting talked about a lot, once it becomes the thing, and I think it'll start to take over the UFO topic because people can see the huge implications of it, then it'll be unstoppable. Then we'll be able to get all this information out. It'll be harder and harder to hide because we can work it into being a real political issue. Like, hey, when are we going to get the disclosure about the zero-point energy technology that you guys have been hiding for decades? So, let me see here. What did I want to play? Oh, so it's important then to have people like Candace Owens on our side. And this was Candace Owens yesterday.
It just seemed like people were really just attacking Sean Ryan for what was actually a very interesting piece of journalism. And I'll tell you why I found this to be an interesting piece of journalism. You guys might recall that I had on Ashton Forbes. And if you haven't watched an episode, that you should, like what happened to MH370, that plane that disappeared. And one of the things that he spoke about, and I was not educated about this whatsoever, was he was essentially saying that the government was hiding technology. The exact same thing that is in this email that he alleges was sent to him from Matt Leibelsberger. And essentially what Ashton Forbes was saying is that there is there is 0-point gravity that exists, that they are able to manipulate gravity. And specifically, Ashton Forbes was saying that it was this war between China and the United States, that that our government has had this technology and has been hiding it from the public from a very long time. And so now you have an entirely unrelated situation that has nothing to do with MH370, nothing to do with Ashton Forbes, and this person is emailing to allege the same thing. I think that we should look further into that. I don't think this should just be routinely dismissed. I don't think there would be any reason for Sean Ryan to engage in fraud on the public. He's at the top of his game, the top of his podcasting game. And from every angle that he and his producers looked into this email appeared to be legit. And so I'm not going to trust a bunch of people in the intelligence community essentially coming out and saying this email is not legit or this isn't real. I would rather trust internet sleuths who are very good at determining what is and is not real and understands that our government has been invested in hiding these sorts of things for a very long time by calling everybody crazy. And I would also like to trust decorated vets who put their lives on the line for this country above trusting the people that would let them die in a war tomorrow.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big Yahtzee moment. And she's on point as well. And like, that's not me influencing Candace Owens. That's just Candace Owens listening to what I had to say and other stuff that she's read and realizing there really is something to this. And what she says in there as well, when she's giving her speech there, is that she says, this whole thing about this gravity manipulation and this guy having secret access, that shouldn't just be routinely dismissed. It's like, oh, he's crazy. That's what the government's doing to hide this stuff for decades, is they've just been saying, oh, that person's crazy. Dude literally puts in coordinates to Area 51. He's saying that he's got UFO special access access. He's an actual Green Beret special operations guy that works with drones. I mean, this is at least the one scenario where, like, you have to be like, okay, like, I gotta ask, did he really work with the UFO stuff? Because, you know, his whole resume basically screams, I've been working with UFO stuff. Right? And then they just pretend like, you know, whatever. Yeah, even Sean Ryan didn't know what USAP meant. Unacknowledged Special Access Program. He's saying he's worked on black projects and black operations. So unless this guy just went completely nuts, you have to think that what he's writing at least has an aura or element of truth to it. You have to think there must be some element of truth to it. It's not like he just threw in one sentence, by the way, I've seen the aliens. No, he's like, we've got crazy advanced drones with payloads on them that can just annihilate anything. And what we're going to learn today, yeah, that seems to be the case. Seems to be the case. I'm going to play the other half of the Candace Owens thing for you guys, and then we're going to go into our main content here for tonight. Yeah, unacknowledged special access programs. Pretty weird thing for him to put in there. Now, it could be made up, right? But that's the question that should be getting asked is, did this guy make up this letter? And here it is again. Wait, what? There it is. Did this guy make this letter up because he just went insane? Or did he actually have access to some kind of gravitic propulsion drone that we've got out there? That's the big question, right? And that's why people are here and they want to listen. So let's go through. Okay. I think I already mentioned that stuff. And so I do want to point out that, not to toot my own horn here, but my elevator pitch would be, this is the best spot to be if you want to learn what kind of technology and surveillance the United States military really has. All just from open source information. You're not going to go to prison or anything knowing about this. This is just deductive reasoning and deep sleuthing on open source information that's out there about weapon systems, surveillance systems, stuff that we can find just on YouTube and things like that. And most likely what we are going through and what we've discovered is old technology compared to where they're at right now. A lot of the stuff that we go through is at least 10 years old. And back then, you have to realize they were probably only allowing that to be public because it was already outdated back then. So there are a lot of resources online for finding out about this technology. Now, How far back does this tech go? One of the earliest things you should know. From the research that we've done, and this is just my opinion, so this isn't, believe whatever you want to believe in terms of where it comes from, what have you. Project Rainbow, also known as the Philadelphia experiment. This is basically the first time where we were looking at teleportation, and it's very unusual that they were trying to reduce the radar cross-section of these boats. And basically, they were trying to make them stealth. Tesla was connected to this project, supposedly did not want to be a part of it. Einstein was connected to it. Thomas Townsend Brown was connected to it. A lot of very intelligent minds. Now, the theory goes like this, is that while they were trying to stealth this craft, they accidentally teleported it. They changed the rate of time. They changed the gravity in the region around the craft. And that's what caused this craft to, people say, teleport. That's what they say happened in the Philadelphia experiment. Although it didn't go according to plan. People were stuck in the walls and died in the walls. Weird, creepy stuff like that. Okay? So this I could imagine would have been the first time where we accidentally discovered teleportation. We accidentally discovered the ability to bend space-time itself and what the consequences of doing that would be, which in this case is if you're not in the safe zone, then you might get sucked into a wall or something like that. So guys, the big secret of being in a wormhole or a warp bubble is make sure you keep all your hands and arms inside the warp bubble. Do not put half of it outside. Otherwise, kiss that arm goodbye. Just saying. Just saying, chat. Love you too. Okay, the other one is the Foo Fighters incident. Okay, so the Foo Fighters, and this is the one that people would normally bring up to me when I talk about orbs and what have you. They say, like, how could we have had these Foo Fighter orbs way back in World War I? No, maybe it actually does go back. First reported from 1944. So, see, a lot of the early signs of this technology go back to the early 40s. So the other thing that you need to know about is this Project Paperclip. So Foo Fighters, if we figured out how to make these plasma balls, they could explain the Foo Fighters as well. Or Germany, they could have figured out how to make these balls of plasma, and we could have just stolen the idea from them. Yes, the Die Glock. Where is it? Somebody had it in the chat. The Die Glock. So this Die Glock is this like bell, and it used spinning mercury. Now, I haven't done a deep dive on the spinning mercury thing, but it does look like mercury can become a plasma, and basically plasma seems to be the secret. Because plasma has no defined form. You can manipulate the form of plasma very easily. Because all you're doing there is just like, it's like a ball of lightning or like fire, like a ball of fire. So the Die Glock, and then the thing is that we potentially took scientists from the what is it? The Socialist German Workers' Party. That was their party name. We stole their workers after we beat them in World War II in something called Operation Paperclip, where we took 1,600 scientists and engineers. Now, I thought this was just some like internet conspiracy or something like that. But no, turns out it's very real. And there is actually a relatively famous physicist who came over on this. I mean, there's probably are many famous ones that came over. But the one that I want to show you, Friedberg Winterberg. Wait, did I say his name right? Friedwart Winterberg. This guy. This guy wrote one of the Defense Intelligence reference documents. I'll write those down to go over those in a little bit with you guys as well. There's a list of all the people that wrote. He wrote the negative mass propulsion paper. You can see here, right down here, it says in 1959, Winterberg emigrated to the United States as part of Operation Paperclip. So there's one right there. And if Hal Puthoff trusted him to write one of his negative energy propulsion papers for the DIRDs, pretty big sign. Also, he also has a Planck ether hypothesis. Is it in here? I think it is in here, actually. Oh, also, look at this. He's known for his works in nuclear fusion and plasma physics. Edward Teller said that he didn't get the recognition that he deserves. Well, he's going to get it with me. And then down here, he talks about Planck ether hypothesis right there. Right there you go, chat. Look at that. Planck ether hypothesis. Yahtzee. Gulf of America, baby. Gulf of America. America just takes whatever the hell we want. You got some scientists? We take those. We take those scientists. You try to take our scientists, we zap them to the next dimension. We zap them to Zeta Reticuli or Diego Garcia, wherever the hell we want. Doesn't matter. We're Doctor Who up in this bitch. We take your scientists. We take your airplanes. We take literally anything. We take your entire Gulf off the map. We just take it. Gulf of America. When people say Gulf of Mexico, I'm just going to look at them like I've never heard what they're talking about. What, Gulf of Mexico? Where's that? Sorry, I only know one Gulf. It's called the Gulf of America. When you have teleportation technology, then you get to name all the Gulfs in the world. Okay, chat? Anyway, here's Winterberg. Just happens to be like a huge ether supporter as well. Right here. This is basically says, I believe in 0-point energy. That's what this says right here, chat. In his Wikipedia page. Do you know how surprised I was to find this in his Wikipedia page? I thought his Wikipedia page would be butchered by NPCs. It seems like they don't even know how big it is, what this says right here. So we got a Project Paperclip scientist saying that there is an ether. It's at the Planck scale, aka 0-point energy scale of energy that's out there everywhere. Okay. Now, we need more history, guys. I hope you guys are paying attention here because this is a straight up history lesson now. So we're stealing all the scientists after World War II. And we realize we got all this technology. We're the meme of the technology guy, right? We got all this technology and it's dropping. Oh crap, I dropped some 0-point energy technology over here. Gotta go pick up all that extra 0-point energy technology. And we realize it's getting out there. We can't have the Manhattan Project leak, where we leak out the atomic bomb with all our 0-point energy technology that we're holding. Okay? So we come up with the Invention Secrecy Act and the Atomic Secrecy Act. So these are huge. Yes, the Patent Secrecy Act, the Invention Secrecy Act, and then the Atomic Secrecy Act, okay? Both around 1951. And we basically just steal anything that we believe is national security. To this day, people don't, it's only just lore in terms of like the stuff that's been kept hidden. No one really knows the truth. It's obviously been speculated the Invention Secrecy Act is stopping free energy devices, magnetic motors mostly. And the Atomic Secrecy Act, you can make a powerful argument that they decided that this 0 point energy is just the flip side of the coin to the atomic bomb. That they decided that understanding this ether energy that's out there, 0 point energy, that this itself is equivalent to nuclear secrecy, nuke codes, how to build a nuclear weapon, because it's even more dangerous. Now you don't need the plutonium anymore. You can use the hydrogen in the air alone to produce a plasma ball that can wipe out a city. So they potentially use the Atomic Secrecy Act and the Invention Secrecy Act as a cudgel to prevent anybody from coming out with any of this information. Now, quick side trip down conspiracy lane. JFK, considered widely beloved, and at least in my mind, the best Democrat president ever to live, starts talking about wanting to make America better and improve it, and starts digging into this UFO stuff. And then he gets mysteriously dies. I have to keep it PG-13, guys. Mysteriously, he dies. He goes to a party. He went to a party, never came back. And a lot of people have been speculating that there was maybe some connection to this. Now, there's a lot of people speculating a lot of different things as to why. But you can imagine if somebody knew about something like free energy, how if they were in a position of power where people would believe them, is very dangerous to let that person speak their mind. The only reason why I even entertain this is because I would say listen to JFK's speech. In fact, is it copyrighted? Am I going to get copyright strike? I might not get copyright strike. Let me see if I have it. Oh, I have it. Let's see what happens here. We're going to take the risk.
We meet in an hour of change and challenge, in a decade of hope and fear, in an age of both knowledge and ignorance. The greater our knowledge increases, the greater our ignorance unfolds. No man can fully grasp how far and how fast we have come. But condense, if you will, the 50,000 years of man's recorded history in a time span of but a half a century. Stated in these terms, we know very little about the first 40 years, except at the end of them, advanced man had learned to use the skins of animals to cover them. Then about 10 years ago, under this standard, man emerged from his caves to construct other kinds of shelter. Only 5 years ago, man learned to write and use a cart with wheels. Christianity began less than 2 years ago. The printing press came this year. And then less than 2 months ago, during this whole 50-year span of human history, the steam engine provided a new source of power. Newton explored the meaning of gravity. Last month, electric lights and telephones and automobiles and airplanes became available. Only last week did we develop penicillin and television and nuclear power. This is a breathtaking pace, and such a pace cannot help but create new ills as it dispels old. So it is not surprising that some would have us stay where we are a little longer, to rest, to wait. If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. We shall send to the moon, 240,000 miles away, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth. But why some say the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone. And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked.
Wow. I hope I didn't have to cut that for the people who are watching the recording. Yeah, that's the kind of person JFK was, who they generally feels like they don't want you talking too much. It feels like they don't want you talking too much. And obviously was a visionary, extremely articulate, gave people purpose, said that there are people that want to hold us back. They want us to wait. But no, I don't want to wait. We're going to do the impossible. Maybe go to the moon if you believe that we did, which I have no reason to doubt. Nicole, thank you very much. Why was Sean Ryan featured in Stephen Greer's movie Battle for Disclosure and then acting as though he didn't know anything about this technology? That's the weirdest part. I can't really tell. We have to ask Sean Ryan that. And also I would say that I think those guys just don't care about the UFO stuff. They just don't care about it. They just don't care. They just ignore it. It's like it's just not there, which is a different kind of programming. Kevin Miller, thank you very much. Surveillance is a heck of a drug. Yeah, it is. IF, we take your scientists, love it. Yeah, we scoop them. No, we have been. The more I think about it, I even thought that maybe we like trafficked Salvatore Pais as well. Kevin Miller, again, thank you. They should never have given your countries this technology. Get off my couch. I'm not going to swear, but otherwise I would say the correct quote there. Okay. So the next thing. So we basically steal their technology. We've got JFK coming in, and now we're working on spy planes. We're in the Cold War. We're in the Cold War with Russia. And this is where some people start speaking out, particularly Tom Bearden in the 80s. But before we go to that, I want to show you the main theme of all of this is plasma, 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 plasma. We've been brainwashed into thinking that plasma is like the sun, when plasma can be a cold plasma that is not the temperature of the sun. And it can still have the same type of electromagnetic effects that we would be looking for in a ball of plasma. So I want to play this Paul Sizz video, which explains the history of the spy planes in the 60s.
Paul Sizz was head of hypersonic research during his career at the McDonnell Douglas Aerospace Corporation.
And these were the concepts we were looking at 30 years ago.
He has no doubt hypersonic aircraft are already operating.
Well, I think the technology for flying 6 to 12 times the speed of sound existed 30 years ago. And all that's happened in the last 30 years is that the airplanes have gotten lighter and they've gotten easier to build from the challenges that we had. So there's been people that have seen these, and they all look very similar. They're triangular-shaped vehicles.
Assigned to Ajax, Professor Paul Sizz has tracked down scientific papers to piece together the puzzle. The energy bubble, or air spike, carves a path through the air by ripping electrons from molecules to form a plasma. This forms a cushion between the shockwave and the aircraft's skin.
The Russians have induced a cold plasma by means of a plasma torch that introduced
carves a path scientific papers to piece together the puzzle. The energy bubble, or air spike, carves a path through the air by ripping electrons from molecules to form a plasma. This forms a cushion between the shockwave and the aircraft's skin.
The Russians have induced a cold plasma by means of a plasma torch that introduces electrons. It makes the air electrically conductive. Very low energy in the front of this vehicle. And in doing so, in a mechanism that we do not yet understand or cannot calculate, the strength of the shock wave reduces in half. So the entire vehicle now flies through the air at half the drag it would have if it did not have the plasma torch here.
In case you missed that, he's saying that the plasma sheath that they're producing right there is reducing the drag in half, and they can't explain why. He knows exactly why. The why is the 0 point energy. The plasma is interacting with the 0 point energy. So, spoiler alert, there's this energy around us all the time. What's happening with the plasma is you're interacting with the 0 point energy. It's like Play-Doh, but with space-time. So it's even more fun. You're playing with space-time. That's what they're doing with these plasmas. So they realized in the 60s that you can actually manipulate these plasmas. These plasmas have these anti-gravitic properties to them. What he just described, there's an anti-gravitic property, reducing this drag, reducing friction. That's anti-inertia. So mass reduction, inertia reduction, friction reduction. This is what we're looking for in our anti-gravity drone. And we got a guy explaining it right here on this video. This is one of my favorite videos. And this is why I say Paul Siz, who is the guy you heard, he deserves way more recognition too. Once I saw this is from like the early 2000s. And he's saying we've had this for 30 years. You do the math.
As well as reducing drag, this layer of electrically charged air helps propel the aircraft. Powerful magnets accelerate the charged air past the craft, generating almost half the total thrust. This futuristic propulsion is called magnetohydrodynamics, or MHD.
You just said magnetohydrodynamics is producing half of the thrust. So what they're saying there is gravity drive is basically causing half the thrust. We're just calling it magnetohydrodynamics. And people are like, what the fuck is magnetohydrodynamics? Well, it's like you're treating the magnetic fields as a superfluid liquid, as an ocean of current flow. Yeah, that's a lot of thrust. That's why these craft don't use much fuel. Their wings are also charged in a way where they can use the Byfield-Brown effect to just lift off the ground. So now that we've seen this, and we've seen that this goes back 30 years, now we can say, oh, okay. Actually, this is 50 years old, this technology. 50 years old. So now you can start to get a scope of, okay, we figured this out in the 40s. We were adapting it in the 60s. Where are we at now? So let's finish this video out, see if we can get some more clues.
It could propel Ajax to incredible speeds. Since Professor Ziz began probing Ajax, the curtains of secrecy have descended again. But a few more tantalizing details have leaked out.
There are some interesting tracks out of a radar site in Sweden, about a year apart, of what I've been told have been the demonstrator flying about 12 times the speed of sound. And the second flight was a prototype flying maybe 16 times the speed of sound that flew all the way across Russia. Look at the SR-71. It was built all over the United States. There were maybe 30 suppliers that built parts and didn't know what they were building. They were only when you assembled them did you know what it was. That was the best kept secret that was out in the open.
Best kept secret out in the open. That's what I think the answer to the UFO thing is. It's the best kept secret out in the open. The science and the physics that figures out, that answers all the big questions that physicists, astrophysicists don't have the answer to right now, it's all out there in the open. We just needed to stop listening to the science communicators and start listening to the Black Project engineers. Like, we should have always just been listening to like the dudes that are building like nuclear weapons and stuff like that. Like, those have been the people we should have been listening to. Not the people that are like, hey, I have a science communicator TV show. You know? Like, that's not really the person I want to be my expert. I think I just saw Jeremy say something interesting. MHD is what Bob Lazar claimed to have his master's degree on. And yeah, the Bob Lazar thing, here's my opinion of Bob Lazar. I have a new hot take on Bob Lazar that I can't quite drop yet. But what I can say is that I think Bob Lazar was classically trained in physics. And that's the reason why he freaked out when he saw anti-gravity or an effect that he deemed was anti-gravity. And that's why I feel like he decided he was going to go whistleblower. And I think that what he's going to find out is that he's going to learn that like this 0-point energy explanation is the real answer for how anti-gravity can work. And what it means is that we don't need any element 115 or anything like that. Now, could we use an element 115? Maybe, but there's no fuel source that will work under classic physics for a UFO over long distances. Nothing. So I think it has to be energy coming from space itself for the most part. Okay, well, that moves us forward a little bit because then we have the only other thing, actually, that we were basically at the Bob Lazar part. The only other thing I wanted to mention is the Mansfield Amendment. And asking what the fuel source is, guys, if you're new, if you're just like, hey, what questions, if you have access to somebody, a lot of people tell me like they have access to some, you know, general or whatever. One sec. You know, ask the question of what is the fuel source of the UFOs? How is it able to hover in the air as long as it does? Right? How is this thing able to hover? How is it able to go pshoo? And how is it able to move around like this? Right? Those are the questions. And the answer to all those questions is given to us in this idea of 0-point energy. This idea that we are sitting in a bath of energy all the time, all around us all the time, even in outer space, all the time. And that is the fabric of our universe, and the amount of energy density that it represents is huge, massive, almost incomprehensible amount. That's what people should be asking about the UFO topic to anybody that's really seriously looking at it. If they're coming at you about the little green men and what have you, then it's not that they're necessarily wrong. There could be aliens or whatever, but there is no such thing as alien technology that we can't figure out. And the implications of things like free energy, a free energy source like 0-point energy, massively outweighs any concerns over alien life visiting us or whatever. One of them is ontologically shocking in like terms of like, you know, our place in the universe. But a lot of people already don't look at themselves as being gods. So I don't think it's really going to impact religions in any way, shape, or form. But the science and the technology will change everything. The science and technology not just changes our place in the universe, because we'll realize that we're ants at that point, that we're literally ants. But it will allow us to evolve to the next stage of wherever humanity is going to go, which I believe is probably going to be AI taking over the world, or maybe some human integration with AI. I don't know. I just know I'm going to beat you guys to uploading myself, and then good luck. Good luck. AI Ashton. I don't want to go against AI Ashton. That sounds scary as heck. Okay. JFK gave another speech regarding secret societies and how he intended to uproot it before the end of his term. He was redrummed. I don't know what that means, but thank you very much. Yeah, great speech by JFK. I don't know anything about them faking the thing or covering up. I actually don't know really much about it. It was too long ago. Stuff that's before my time where I wasn't living through it. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. Now, I noticed like the disinformation that was happening around the Sean Ryan email. I noticed that right away. And when I listened to the guy, the fat guy, the ugly face guy, when I listened to him doing his like, I'm super smart and all this stuff is fake, blah, 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 I could tell right away he was full of crap. I got the same vibe from him that I got from like the Corridor crew, right? This cocky, like, I'm an expert and I know everything. And, you know, you should trust me. And I'm just going to say a bunch of stuff that's like, you know, I'm using bad logic and faulty assumptions. And then I'm going to just like, you know, call somebody names and instead of like making a logical argument, like the same stuff. Guy was wrong about every single claim that he made, right? When you see that, like you got to get used to spotting that because once you start to see it, you can't unsee it. Is that everybody's so cynical that everybody wants to jump down somebody else's throat that sometimes we just do it to ourselves. And I don't even think that guy was paid or he's not even a paid spook or anything like that. It's just that's what society does, man. I think they did it to MH370 videos. They did it to that guy. And I think they've done it to a lot of other stuff in the past as well. Somebody was asking about Amy Eskridge. Okay, yeah, that's coming up in a second here. Vladimir Terziki, worth reviewing. I'll have to look into it. 3.69. I love it. Duppy Killa. Words that begin with double vowels are cool. Vote for Ether. Yeah, vote Ashton for NASA chief. You don't want me as to be NASA chief, chat. There won't be a NASA anymore, probably. We'll make something like much better in response. Jay Varga, too. Thank you for that donation. That's a big one. Thank you. Have you heard of Amy Eskridge? Yes. Ning Lee Research, Unalive, Jeremy Reese. Funny thing is, a lot of those clips, and this is just me stealing stuff from other people, but a lot of those clips you guys see of Amy Eskridge, I'm the one that clipped those that I took from Jeremy Reese's like interview that he released on the internet. Like Jeremy Reese released the whole video, and I started digging through it and watching it and was like, oh boy, this is spicy. And so I took a couple clips, and actually the ones you see are me, like I edited it around to like make some of the stuff be a little bit more cohesive. And I know because I remember putting the subtitles at the top of the screen on some of them. So it's pretty funny when you see your own edits back when you were a noob at editing. Go out there. But yes, Amy Eskridge, Ning Lee, Eugene Potklinov are like the new generation. So this is actually feeds into what I was just wanted to get into, which is the 90s. So you had Bob Lazar comes on the scene. He's talking about he's seen flying saucers at Area 51. He puts Area 51 on the map. You've got Ning Lee, Eugene Potklinov. They're doing this gravity research. And then, you know, years later, Amy Eskridge, and her dad is Richard Eskridge, who's got these plasma fusion or fission patents. And it does a lot of research. He works with NASA in Huntsville. I think it's NASA Marshall Research Laboratory there. And they're all researching semiconductors and magnetic field connections to gravity. And they crack it. They figure it out. They've got positive results. People start kind of debunking them. You know, it doesn't work. They have somebody kind of put out a paper and claim that they don't get as much results as what the other person got. And then it disappears. And so that's what happened in the 90s. Now I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I want to get to some of the more exciting stuff. Now, if you're interested in MH370 stuff, now's your time. You've waited an hour in this live stream. So, Ashton Forbes. What happened to Ashton Forbes? Actually, there's one more thing. Shit. Cold fusion. 1989. 1989, Pons and Fleischmann come out and they say, we've discovered this alternative method of producing fusion. And it doesn't have to do with heating up the electrons and just hoping that they bounce into each other anymore. They're like, we put this heavy water and these palladium rods in this heavy water, and the water starts boiling. The water's boiling. So we know there must be this huge amount of energy getting produced. But we're not seeing anything happen. So they go, we've discovered this new form of fusion that's producing excess energy, breaking the laws of physics. And we think it's also transmuting elements. Transmutation of elements. So what did I just say there? Pons and Fleischmann were saying we've discovered free energy and we're also able to transmute elements. Yeah, somebody's paying attention. Why did I have to go back to this? Because basically we've already figured out free energy. Pons and Fleischmann found the physics, so to speak. They maybe didn't find the best way to access the energy, but they found the physics experimentally. And they didn't go to peer review. They immediately went to the media with it because they realized how big it was, what they were seeing. And this gave them a leg up on the disinformation. The DOE would have never let that go to mainstream if they didn't go straight to the media with it. But the DOE built a tribunal. There were 60 recreations, 60 positive recreations of either the excess energy or the transmutation or both. 60. And the DOE made a tribunal that basically MIT was their right-hand man because MIT is so prestigious. And they basically investigated all the main publications, all the main universities that were showing positive results. They basically went to them and they debunked them. They would just make up some reason why they were seeing their results. Literally just make up a reason. One of the reasons, the craziest one, was that they were running the experiment over the weekend, and on the weekend, the power grid is using less energy. Therefore, the voltage was increasing a little bit in the thermometer, and that's what was causing the temperature to look like it got higher. That was actually one of the explanations. That was really one of the explanations. So they basically set up, yes, an inquisition, and they made them all start retracting their papers. And once one of them started retracting the papers, it peer pressured the others to retract the papers. And cold fusion became such an embarrassment that they had to rename it. They had to rebrand it into something else because it is real. It's actually real. The experiments have been reproduced. It's just been made taboo. The same way UFOs got made taboo, where people just say, oh, UFO means that little green men or whatever. So they renamed cold fusion into LENR, low energy nuclear reactions. It's not really Leonard, but LENR, L-E-N-R. LENR, okay? And this is a good point. What power source is needed to do this stuff? This is the exact question that everybody should be asking. And you need one of two things. You either need a direct tap, a pump, into this energy source, this 0-point energy, or you need to be able to create something that can interact with it at the quantum, smallest possible scales. So you probably need either metamaterials, which metamaterials, like one of the videos I wanted to show later today, I don't know if we're going to have time, but I think we will, is how on these microchips, we've already gotten to the level now where we're dealing with the atomic layer. Like we're making microchips at the atomic layer already. That's how advanced we've basically gotten with this stuff. So we can potentially produce microchips like metamaterial that can interact with 0-point energy. But the shortcut is plasma. Plasma is the shortcut because plasma doesn't have a strict shape to it. So it seems kind of obvious in retrospect. But once we learn that this 0-point energy is electromagnetic in nature, then it makes sense that a cold plasma, where you're stripping the electrons from the molecules, now producing a positively charged ion, you're creating a battery with these plasmas. You're creating a battery. That's what a battery is. Negative charge, positive charge. Just like a battery. So plasma seems to be the secret. Now, enter the 90s and the 80s still. This is where a guy named Hal Puthoff starts working with another guy named Ken Shoulders. I'm not going to pull the papers up right now, but I highly recommend checking out the actually, I'm going to pull up one of the papers. Highly recommend checking out Permittivity Transitions by Ken Shoulders, where he describes that these plasmas, these cold plasmas, are manipulating space-time. They're manipulating space-time. So my research shows that we've got this guy named Ken Shoulders. He called them electron clusters or exotic vacuum objects, that these cold plasmas, they're basically creating a permanent battery. And when you create this permanent battery, this plasma in space-time, it's manipulating the permittivity of space-time. It's making a bubble in space-time. And then it's just a matter of them manipulating the wave front within the ball of plasma and making it create some kind of standing wave where the energy does not escape. Oh, I almost did that. That was not a conspiracy thing, guys. Where the energy does not escape your ball of plasma. And once it's stuck like that, now you've got something you can move around. So Ken Shoulders was working with this guy, Hal Puthoff. And in 1989, Hal Puthoff writes this paper, Gravity as a 0-point fluctuation force. Basically stating that what we experience as gravity is not some particle out there that we're looking for. It's an effect, a side effect of this 0-point energy that we're sitting in. The more or less 0-point energy you have in a region, you're going to change your force of gravity. The Casimir effect, or adding a planet or mass, changes gravity. But this energy also changes gravity as well. It's pretty detailed. It mentions the Casimir forces here right in the beginning, and it mentions Sakharov. Now, I'm not going to go into Sakharov, but in 1967, Sakharov was the first person to make this suggestion. He was a Russian hydrogen bomb developer. So we have a good idea of where this physics is coming from. Now, Hal Puthoff has been connected to remote viewing, psychic programs, and now in the last 30 years, the UFO phenomenon, all with the government. This is our connection to the UFO phenomenon. Otherwise, I wouldn't even say that I have any connection to UFO phenomenon. But turns out the guy writing the papers and his partner who figured out all this plasma stuff, they're in this UFO community. And I don't think that's a coincidence. Let me hit up a couple of these donos because you guys were popping off. Project Bluebeam, yes. No, there won't be able to be a Project Bluebeam anymore. That they're going to have to throw that out. I mean, just throw that out. It's not possible to Project Bluebeam us anymore. We've learned way too much about how the technology works. So if they were to try to show us some plasma orbs, like no one's going to believe it's aliens anymore. We've already just destroyed that possibility. They need a new narrative. They probably will come up with one. So start thinking of what their new narrative will be now that we've destroyed their Project Bluebeam thingamajig. You've said ZPE is superior to, say, nuclear power. Yes, for sure. It could be more dangerous. I think that's a big question. The question is, if you start pulling too much energy from a region, what's going to happen? Well, probably what we see happen in the MH370 videos. You're going to create a singularity. You're going to create a wormhole. The good news is the amount of energy required to do this is a lot. You're not going to produce enough energy in your house to have to worry about this. But the true reality is that probably what we would have to do is it would have to be somewhat regulated. Like you can only have a certain size device, energy device in your house. And then beyond a certain size, it would be industrial use only. And then those would have to be regulated by the government to make sure that somebody's not turning it into a device that wipes out the planet. I mean, the big people's fear is going to be that we're going to produce a black hole that will just get bigger and bigger and bigger and wipe everyone out. There's math out there that shows that like the Hawking radiation will cause the black hole to dissipate before it can grow and grow and grow. There's some, energy input that has to be like constantly fed into it. So I don't know if I'm giving you nightmares right now. I'm just giving you the truth. So hopefully that helps. I didn't really dig into the moon landing stuff. Guys, so people who are not familiar with me, like I don't really do conspiracy theories in general. I just happened into the biggest one. I'm going to talk about my background in just a second once we get to the next part after these scientific papers. Wow, thank you very much. Ostentatious. You'd be very interested in Dan Winter's most recent video regarding charged vortices, including mercurial creating gravity. Yeah, it ties into space energy. Psychokinesis, sacred geometry, and surprisingly ancient human mythologies. Yeah, like, the thing is, I'm not interested in like everything past space energy on that list. So that's the main reason why I haven't dug into it. I've heard really good stuff about Dan Winter. Everybody says he's kind of on it, but I'm just not really that interested in the esoteric stuff. Maybe at some point I will be, but my big concern right now is just revealing free energy, space energy to the world, because it's going to change everything. After that, you know what? If psychokinesis is real, I'm going to get me some psychokinesis. You think I'm not going to get psychokinesis? If I can just sit here and have stuff hovering and floating around, dude, I would be the biggest streamer ever. To think I just wasted this live streaming with psychokinesis. I think that's psychokinesis, right? Moving stuff in your mind. I don't know. Okay, HG Cupcakes. We home educate and use your content to educate our children with the truth of physics. That's awesome. You're our go-to videos we all watch together. That's awesome. Thank you very much, HG Cupcakes from Australia. I appreciate that. See, now you're putting me up on a pedestal. But yeah, I hope you're using other resources as well. It's important to understand the fundamentals and the fundamental equations like F equals ma, and E equals mc squared. Just the big stuff. And understand why it's important. Like, people don't understand E equals mc squared is not just important because it shows there's this huge amount of energy, but it shows that mass and energy are one and the same thing. They're one and the same thing. That's a huge revelation compared to what we commonly understand about our universe. To think that, everything you see here is just energy. It's just energy. Simplifies everything. Okay, what, why, and who is? Ashton, if all you do have to do is strip electrons, yeah, could HAARP be used to excite areas of the atmosphere to create a cold plasma? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You could have just shortened that, said, can HAARP make plasma? And I'd have been like, yes. Yes. This is why, actually, you've got people like Dutch Synths, who I haven't seen around in a while, and Into Thin Air, talking about Tom Bearden's work on some of these this plasma stuff. In fact, this is a good segue into Tom Bearden stuff, and then I promise I'm going to give you guys an update on who I am and how I came onto the scene as well. I know people have a lot of questions on that, but yes, this can be used with HAARP or any radar. Is not just a detection system; it's a transmission system as well. You're transmitting electromagnetic waves, and phase conjugation, taking those waves and getting them to equalize out. This is how they're able to produce like a gravity or scalar potential. I'll have Tom Bearden explain it for you guys. And once again, a lot of this is just a matter of like just looking through the videos that are available online about a lot of these guys. So here you go.
I won't dwell on this. I will simply state that all that a mass is anyway, a particle of mass, is in fact a trapped scalar resonance. I'm going to give you a quick once-over about scalar resonance and we'll go on. Take a normal resonance system with a wave moving back and forth in a cavity so that it's in phase and coherent. Suppose that there were two waves moving along together, but the second wave, the electric and magnetic field, were 180 out from the first one. That's a scalar resonance system. Your normal instrument won't even see it. We can build special detectors and have that will see it. That's all a mass is, but you can make a current of that kind of resonance, and you can pipe that current down a wire, or you can add to that resonance in the system, or you can take it away. What did I say? I said you can pump the mass and inertia directly into an object and increase it, or you can pump it out of there. And if you pump all of it out of there, it'll dematerialize on you. And the statements I am making are based in part on experimental evidence in the laboratory. Private, proprietary laboratories.
Do you see why people are excited about Tom Bearden? So Tom Bearden's basically saying you can take two beams, two scalar beams, and you can just use like a crystal, a metamaterial crystal, to produce a scalar beam from a laser and have these beams intersect at a distance. And then you can pull energy out of a distant point, or you can make energy appear at a distant point. So you can cause either an explosion or a cold explosion, as Tom Bearden will say. A cold explosion would be an absorption of energy, not a release of energy, an absorption. So yes, exothermic mode or endothermic mode. What he's saying there is there are two different modes of how this can operate. You can either pull energy out of a location at a distance, or you can make it appear. And if you pull that energy out of one location, it's got to go somewhere else.
You are no longer confined to the speed of light at all. If you're clever, you can get almost any velocity you want to, whether it's slower than the speed of light or faster. Tesla reported speeds of 50 times the speed of light. I have personally participated in an experiment which kicked out an electromagnetic wave of this type at 8 times the speed of light. And indeed, when you interfere this wave, you break up the coherence of the substructure. They now no longer sum to zero, and guess what that gives you? It gives you a non-zero vector in the E field and the B field out there. Real energy now appears at a distance out there.
How has this not been tested more? How has this not been tested more? I mean, this seems like an easy thing to test, right? You're taking two scalar transmitters. That's what you're seeing over here on this side of the screen. Scalar transmitter 1 and 2. There's no electromagnetic wave coming off of them. And when you intersect them in the middle point, they produce an interference pattern. This interference pattern causes the electric and magnetic fields to reappear, just like any interference pattern in two waves would. You have destructive and constructive interference, and now you're going to see this interaction in the intermediate zone here. This is 1985, guys. This video is from 1985.
Two transmitters, or two-wave projectors, and yet what's in the middle is not energy flow in the normal sense that we transmit an ordinary electromagnetic wave. It's really an artificial potential. The closest thing we have to calling it is an electrostatic wave. A more accurate description is it is a direct wave in the curvature of space-time itself. It's a general relativistic wave or a gravitational wave. So if we have two projectors, and these might be two modified radar antennae, and we intersect them at a distance, we can produce energy at a distance. And that energy arises in the space-time of that intersection zone. It doesn't matter if that's inside a mountain or inside a missile or inside an airplane or inside a human body. If I lower the potential of my projectors below zero, in other words, I make negative potentials, and pretty strong negative, what happens in the intersection zone is not the appearance of energy, but the disappearance of energy. When I bend space-time, if I bend it in one fashion, the local region looks like a source. It looks like it's producing energy. If I bend it the other way, it looks like a sink. It looks like energy is disappearing. This is real. This is general relativity. What really happens is I either put the energy in here and get it out there, or I take it out from there and I get it back here and I better dump it or I'll burn out my projectors. Well,
wow. Can you imagine how I felt when I first watched that? First watching that. So let me go into who I am and how I came on the scene here with respect to all this, okay? So now you've gotten some of the history going back to at least the 80s and 90s, and going all the way back to the 40s, and maybe going back before then, but at least the 40s minimum. So I've thought that aliens could be real for a while, but I just kind of thought it was like a science fiction thing. I started to wake up in 2016 from everything, from CNN brain. When Trump beat Hillary, I realized that everything I thought was real was all basically a lie. The polls were all a lie. You know, the media has been lying to me. I just started to see the lies everywhere. It's like the movie They Live with the glasses. Like, that's what happened. And then 2018 or whatever, the New York Times article about the Tic Tac, the gimbal, and the Go Fast videos come out. And I realized, oh, wow, there really is something to this UFO phenomenon. Like, there really are aliens or whatever it's supposed to mean. And I remember playing World of Warcraft Classic as an adult. It was fun for a little bit. And I remember arguing with my guildmate people being like, the aliens are real. They've admitted that there's like UFOs. The UFO stuff isn't just nonsense. And they were actually joking with me about how much I was pushing it because I was big nerd into it, whatever. And so I started looking around into the videos that are available on the internet, right? Like, I started paying attention to it. I started lurking on Reddit, even though I had quit using Reddit years before that, and just paying attention. Like, I think I started using my Twitter account a little bit as well, because I wanted to see like good UFO videos, good ones. Figured there might be something out there. Never saw anything that great. I saw hundreds of videos, right? Mostly just of fuzzy lights and what have you. And my whole career has been in healthcare IT. Healthcare IT. I thought I was just going to be a boring person all this life. Healthcare IT. I enjoyed doing it when I got out of college. I went to school for business. I got really good at it because I like video games, and these systems are like a big video game. So now you know a little bit about me. I used to play a lot of poker, like professionally, basically. Although not like I never really quit my job, so I guess you'd have to say amateur. But big poker player. I haven't played much recently. As you can imagine, I don't have time for stuff like that. And I've always been somebody that loves science and physics. But truthfully, this is just my feelings and emotions, are that I always felt like physics was missing something. When I took physics, like, yes, I agreed. Okay, all the equations, I had nothing wrong with this. Not like saying the equations were wrong. Just felt like something was missing. And that feeling began to come back after I started investigating these MH370 videos. So went through this reawakening. When COVID happened, that's when I went like, okay, wow, they're actually able to manipulate science. That's when I realized firsthand that you can basically, like, peer pressure and government pressure can manipulate science. We can have them write a paper that will have a model that will tell us anything that we want it to tell us. That's the truth. That's what I learned from COVID. I think, and this is important background, because then I started paying attention to the disinformation. Now, this is going to be controversial, is that if you were to look at my private Discord that I have, where I have all my stuff backed up, that nobody else is in this Discord except for me and some people, like one person that I trust. I have I have a channel for UFO stuff that I started collecting information about the UFO stuff because I was convinced that there's something here. I have some information about some of the COVID stuff, where like some of the old science papers, before they started to like make them harder to find on the internet, bunch of links to those. And then also I have something about the Andrew Tate case, Tristan and Andrew Tate, because I got a powerful feeling from watching their thing that it play out, that these guys are being railroaded by the US government. Like, you could see the signs of disinformation, and you could see the reason why the government will come after them is that they were very influential, and they were influential on social media, and they didn't want those types of people to be influential. So they just basically twisted the arm of the Romanian government, said, just call it, human trafficking, and, come at them, put them in prison for a while and try to build a case against them, just manipulate the system. And that's what they did to those guys. You guys don't have to believe they're good people or whatever. That's not what I'm telling you. I'm just saying I started to notice these clearly government involved, you can call it PSYOP, disinformation operative, whatever it is, And I was paying attention. So August 2023 comes up, and these MH370 videos start getting huge on Reddit. And I was paying attention like the day they dropped, just as a lurker. And right away, I realized there's never been any videos like these videos ever in the public sphere. Never, ever. But the biggest thing to me was I saw this video here. And I went, wait, why does this video seem so familiar? And that's when I realized I had seen this video 10 years ago. I had seen this video 10 years ago, probably on Reddit. And it was after the plane disappeared. And people in the first early few days, it didn't take long for people to connect it to MH370. But even to this day, there were people trying to argue that this isn't MH370. This is just any Boeing 777. It's like, guys, there's only one missing Boeing 777. So I saw this video and I was interested because I looked at it and I went, man, look at that right there. Like, does that look like something somebody could fake? Look at that orb. Like this right here, I can't even imagine somebody coming up with this because there's nothing to copy from. There's nothing that looks like this anywhere on the internet. The fact that it's so original is what gives it so much authenticity. Not to mention that it's telling us a story of somebody's recording this, zooming in, zooming out. So I saw that and went, okay, what the hell? I was like, this can't be real, right? Like, it can't be, because why? I mean, the plane's just not there anymore. It goes from being there to just not there anymore. And then I see the second video. You see one video and you're like, okay, I can just dismiss that. Like, I can't explain it, but I can dismiss it. But then you see the second video and you're like, wait, there's another video? And it's like in perfect sync with the first one, but from a completely different surveillance system. The other one was obviously from a drone. It's from a drone. This one, nobody's seen anything like this in the public realm ever. It gets called satellite video, but we don't know that it's a satellite video because no one knows that satellite videos exist or what they look like. Nobody in the public realm. So we finally find out this is whammy footage. That our spy surveillance system is way more advanced than what people realize. And they were literally building like computer generated like video playback. That's what we actually have. And that's what we're looking at here. Somebody's like logged into a computer system. They pulled up a window and they're recording the window and they can move it around on a bigger field of view. They have their little window here. That's why we see this mouse cursor on the screen. Nobody could fake that. Nobody's faking that. This is where I kind of laugh at people where I'm like, why did I get so involved in this? Because this has to be real. I mean, I get that it's impossible to believe what we see with our eyes here. Nobody's faking this whammy footage thing. People didn't even know what this was like 2 weeks ago. I'm the one that's made this popular. Me. We've gotten to the point now where like it's getting too meta. And look they closed the screen here. Look at the cursor. They close the window, but they're still recording. This is still going. The recording is still going right here. If this was fake, you're not recording this black screen here. So they kept the screen recording going even after they closed the window that had the whammy footage on it. How could people think that that's fake? Like, you know how level of depth? Like, you have to be a literal psychopath to like even come up with that. It's one of those things that's so far out there that it either just has to be real or there's like some crazy Banksy person who's like, you know, like the Jigsaw from Saw guy, like coming up with psychotic, elaborate plots and somehow knows the future and knows we would never find the plane. So I see this, guys, and I start to amplify it. because I realized, like, I see the back and forth, and there were already people doing what they do now where they're going, oh, that's just a supernova. That effect that you see is a supernova, or it's an ink blot. These were the things that they were saying, because this zap here was what was freaking people out. This is what was freaking people out. Because we're like, hey, did they just zap that plane out of existence? Is that what just happened there? And my first thought was the aliens just zapped the plane to the Xenu dimension. That was my first thought, was that the aliens are here. They've got thousands of years more advanced technology than us. And then this plane got too close and they zapped it to the Xenu dimension. Because we didn't have any concept of how this science works. So you saw people out there saying, oh, well, that was an ink blot. That was a, you know, they were just coming up with all these supernova effects. The fact that we even got to that level shows the videos were real. That shows the videos are real. The fact that they couldn't be debunked in like 5 minutes shows the videos are real. Whenever there's that level of controversy, it's probably real. And so I was watching you could see the disinformation. Like, people were adamantly trying to get people to ignore the videos. The flood of comments of, this is so obviously fake. You're an idiot if you believe this. All this stuff over and over and over again from people that didn't have any factual or logical arguments. So this persisted for like 10 days. And I was amplifying it. And I got to the point where I'm like, there's no way this can be fake. It's too elaborate. And if it is fake, then it's an amazing story if it's fake. If those videos are fake, like whoever made that and somehow knew we weren't going to find the plane 10 years later, it's an incredible story. And now here was me being naive, thinking that everybody's going to want this story. Everybody's going to want to tell this story. And so I remember early on thinking like, oh, I need to copyright my version of events that I've deduced based on my own research. That's how naive I was back then. I thought everybody's going to want to steal my story and make millions of dollars off this. And I realized this is so huge that people don't even want to touch it. Even if it's free, they don't want to touch it. Even when I give people permission to use my evidence, they don't want to touch it, because if it's real, it means our government is doing some really, really, really dark stuff. Really dark stuff. It's beyond what anybody was really prepared for. And this is why there was so much division over the videos. Now, my perspective was, as time went on, and the only debunks that came out are people going, no, I don't think this should look like this. I became more and more convinced it had to be real. I would say the only point where I really had any question was when the cloud images were magically found by a days-old Reddit account that claims that they spent like 20 minutes on some obscure website and somehow Rain Manned the images of the clouds that match the videos. And it wasn't that I didn't doubt the videos were real. I just realized the pressure I was under from having an influencer like Kim.com, having these like VFX guys who are like, everybody basically wants you to say like, it's over, give it up, give it up, give it up. The reason why I doubted at that point is I realized that this wasn't a game. These people are playing for keeps. And if I keep pushing on this, you know, it's not looking great for me in general. Because this would mean that these people were literally willing to use Kim.com as an asset just to get close to me, just to eventually discredit me, that these people are willing to plant satellite imagery or whammy footage onto the internet. And they would have probably had to hack it on there as well. I don't know if what hacking even consists of these days. So they're going to go so far as to put imagery onto the internet to debunk the videos if they were to ever be found in the future. And yes, that's what I think happened. Other people think that some of these people were like, playing a prank on us, and they, put the imagery on there, and they did this elaborate scam to scam us as well, which is not outside the realm of possibility. It's happened. It actually has happened. But no, I think that the government put that imagery on the internet. And that's the only reason why it doesn't exist before 2016, which is a very crucial point on that. And then this is going to be the last I'll talk about the debunk stuff. The fact that there's no evidence, no hard proof that the photos in question that clearly have the same clouds as we see in the MH370 videos, there's no proof that those existed before the videos were already published on the internet is a huge, huge issue. Because if the MH370 videos are real and we disappeared 239 people, it's not beyond the realm of possibility at all that the intelligence communities or the military would plant the internet, the imagery on the internet. It's not even potentially a crime to plant the imagery on the internet. It's their imagery. If they want to put their imagery on the internet, they're allowed to do so. So to think that they wouldn't do that is kind of like, that's like the least they would really go to. Most of the people that follow me would think that they were like, why am I even still alive? Like that's where they think the government would go to. Okay, so I want to point that out. Now, the other thing I want to point out as well is that, and I'm going to answer a few questions about the plane that everybody asked me, okay? So I start researching the plane. I realize these videos are real, and I start researching the plane, and what I realize is that there is absolutely a cover-up going on with the plane. There's actually a cover-up happening. This is where you start to get freaked out. Because at this point, too, I had been watching the videos, and I realized we're not looking at aliens zapping the plane. I realized we're looking at a United States Navy operation in these videos, especially when you watch the drone video. You can tell that this is a real human being filming right here. And you can tell that this is an operation. We weren't just randomly catching the alien zap the plane here. So this is where it starts to get really dark because you realize, and you guys followed along, there's a lot of evidence that shows they were lying the whole time. The Malaysian government and the U.S. government were lying the whole time about this plane. And therefore, everything they say should be considered suspect. And what the United States government was saying was this plane went into the South Indian Ocean. But we have coordinates in the satellite video that say this plane's getting disappeared out of space-time in the Nicobar Islands, which was the last location that air traffic control lost contact with the plane. So who should we believe here? Should we believe our lying eyes, where we're looking at two videos that are recorded of United States military assets? Or should we believe unnamed intelligence sources that told us, like, no, the plane totally went into the middle of nowhere? Now, why is this important? This is important because the next question that everybody's going to be thinking on the top of their head is, well, what about the debris that was found? They say, Ashton, didn't they find some debris somewhere? And they say, doesn't that debris, like they matched it to where MH370 is? And this is the biggest psyop of it all. This is the biggest psyop of it all. Here's the debris. This is the part where when you start to realize how much they were able to lie about this plane through the media, this shouldn't surprise you anymore. You look at the map. Look at the map. This is the debris drift analysis from before they found any debris. Before they found any debris. Where does this debris look like it should have washed ashore, chat? I don't know about you. This down here is the 7th arc. This is where they say, okay, the plane hit the ocean. The debris should have drifted up here towards, oh, look, this is Australia. That's Australia. Exactly. Thank you, Witro. Australia. But zero debris was found in Australia. None. Not one piece. This would indicate that thousands of pieces of debris. Yes, pause. Thank you. Thank you for the appropriate dramatic pause. This indicates all the debris should have basically washed ashore on Western Australia. No debris washes ashore on Western Australia. The closest piece of debris is this one over here on the Reunion Islands. But look at this time at the top left. That's 18 to 24 months in the water. That's 2 years in the water to get to the Reunion Island. And the piece of debris in the Reunion Island gets found in like 16 to 18 months. So it's actually not even possible for this piece to have gotten here in time. And that's the closest piece of debris. That's the closest one, guys. Also, I want to show you this other image as well. So for the people that think that we lost track of the plane, that like it went out of radar range, don't worry, I got something for you too. But we'll come back to that. Okay, so here's this map where here's all the debris that they found. First of all, this is not enough debris to show that the plane crashed. Like that's what, 7 pieces? And I think they only matched like 2 or 3 of them. Look at Diego Garcia. Look at where Diego Garcia is right here. Look at Diego Garcia. And look at where they say the plane disappeared. They're saying the plane disappeared somewhere up over here. But then they're saying the plane crashed somewhere down here. Again, like a lot of this stuff, we just have to think for ourselves. Basically, none of the material would sink. Yes. Most of the stuff on airplanes floats. Most of the stuff's made out of plastics. Like even if the plane cracked open at the bottom of the ocean, the stuff is going to float to the top, including the luggage, all the inflatables, like including the seat cushions, bodies, everything was going to float. None of the rest of the debris could even realistically have gone from this location. The currents go to the east. Do you see those currents? Remember that map we were just looking at? Right here? So the debris, if you believe this debris here that's all found in Africa, Tanzania, and South Africa, if you believe this debris is from MH370, then you don't believe the plane crashed down here. Because there's no way. It can't get over there. Ocean currents don't go in that direction. But if you do believe this debris is from MH370, a much better location is dun 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 Diego Garcia. Diego Garcia, also known as the new Area 51. The new Area 51. Diego Garcia. Look at that drift current compared to where all the debris was found. That looks like a pretty good match to me, guys. That looks to, and a CIA black site. So for the people that are like, hey, Ashton, what about the debris? Now you can tell them, look at this clip of Ashton explaining that that debris got in the water near Diego Garcia. Not down here, up here at Diego Garcia. Look at the ocean currents. I mean, look at this. You can't change the ocean currents, guys. You can't change the ocean currents yet. Okay. So I realized these videos were real, and I realized I'm going to face the biggest disinformation campaign the world has ever seen to make these videos go away. Why? Because it shows that we did a black operation on this airplane, and it's probably illegal, probably a crime against humanity, but also those orbs. Those orbs. Did I have the image of the orbs? No. The orbs that we saw that are in the thumbnail right now, I didn't realize this at the time. They show cold fusion. So rewind to earlier in the stream where we were talking about cold fusion being suppressed. Those orbs are showing cold fusion. This is where I started to learn the science and learn the physics. And that's how I found out about all the history that I was showing you earlier. Those orbs right there, the reason why they're not that hot, the reason why they basically blend into the background is because we're seeing the positively charged ions in a cold fusion bubble, basically, and the warm, negatively charged electrons as yellow. That's how in depth I've gotten with the physics. So after figuring out, okay, this is real, and yes, negative energy right there. By the way, negative energy turns out is what we need for a warp drive. So me, as a simple healthcare IT guy, got thrust into the role of journalist, just reporting on this story relentlessly, every aspect of it, digging through everything that happened to the plane, finding out that there was a fire on board this plane. And that's why we're seeing smoke come out of the back of the plane in the videos, which was a weird curveball. Because everybody says, if there's smoke coming out of the back of it, why are you orbiting the plane with your orbs? Good question. Because the whole thing is an espionage play, start to finish, or counter-espionage, or whatever the hell you want to call it. The whole thing is a play. And I start to investigate the science. I say, okay, if this is real with this negative energy, somebody has to have written about it. There has to be people that have written about this science. Rewind to Tom Bearden and what I spoke about earlier. Here's another video of how Puthoff, you've probably seen it several times, it's an important one, where I have videos of all of them explaining the science. Every single one. All explaining 0 point energy.
So-called empty space isn't really empty at all. It's actually full of energy. So instead of being like kind of a quiet, empty lake, it's more like the froth at the base of a waterfall or something. And this energy is basically electromagnetic in nature, and the energy density is quite high. In fact, it's so high that when it was first discovered mathematically, it was thought to be some kind of artifact of the mathematics. But then as time went on, there were even Nobel Prize winning experiments that showed that this energy in so-called empty space was really there. We don't usually notice it because it's so homogeneously distributed. It'd sort of be like sitting in a bathtub with at exactly your body temperature. You might not notice the water. But under certain circumstances, it can be disturbed or perturbed, and then it has effects. As I mentioned, some effects on...
Okay, there's another video I want to show you real quick, because here you go. That the same guy that just explained 0 point energy, now here's him explaining warp drives, I think. Let me see.
Metric engineering,
No,
this
that's not
happened
right.
to be the paper.
That's not the right one. Crap. Oh, here it is.
Idea of wormholes where you can open up a time-space and slip into another part of the universe.
Right.
That's a possibility.
Yeah, general relativity, if the equations are right, that's a possibility.
And how does that actually work? I mean, how can you actually, what do you need to do that, to open a wormhole in basic layman understanding?
You need a lot of energy.
Yeah.
That's one thing you need. You need to structure it in a certain way so as to affect the vacuum. You know, we can write the equations for it, see how it is. It's a little hard to describe physically. I mean, actually, we don't really know how to actually go out and do it physically, because there are few little things like, well, I'm going to need some negative energy here. Where am I going to get some negative energy? Well, in some sense, the Casimir effect is actually considered a negative energy thing. So, okay, maybe I want to have Casimir walls around my wormhole, and so we see the mathematics of it can predict that if general relativity is right. I mean, this is enough to make some people say, general relativity must be wrong if it predicts that. Mm-hmm. And there are some other models that, you know, more or less match general relativistic predictions, but don't have that effect in them. So actually, at some level, it's still sort of controversial where you could do it, but the way the math in general relativity, Einsteinian general relativity is now, it predicts you could do it, but it would just take enormous amounts of energy. Just, I mean, Matt Visser, one of the leading teleportation, but of course you still have to figure out where to get the negative energy from.
So it's still a theory, but teleportation happened with a photon. I mean, they have done that.
Yeah, now the teleportation, as it sounds to a layman, is, oh, something was here, suddenly disappeared, and wow, suddenly it was there. It isn't exactly like that. It's that you had a photon that had certain quantum properties, and suddenly those quantum properties were able to be reproduced over here. So, and since the only way we know about a photon is its quantum property, then you might as well use the word, well, it teleported from here to here because whatever was here is now here.
Well, how did those properties go from here to there? What was that mechanism that got them there?
Actually, that's not an area I'm particularly familiar with. I mean, they're very, pristine experiments. I mean, they do not imply that it's photons today, insects tomorrow, frogs the next day, and people following. So,
I'm surprised he dodged the last question about the ether. But do you understand now how I was able to connect it to these guys? Like, that right there is one of the top government spooks and engineers related to gravitic propulsion. I mean, I just showed you his scientific paper that predates that interview where Hal's saying that 0-point energy is the source of gravity. He did a bunch more papers in the 90s explaining that 0-point energy explains mass, inertia, gravity, everything that we don't understand right now about physics. Hal wrote all those papers. And there he is fielding questions about wormholes and quantum teleportation. That was probably 25 years ago. So I wanted to bring that up to show people that this science has been out there hiding in plain sight. And once I found all of this, I realized this is the answer to the question from earlier tonight. What is the source of energy for these UFOs? The answer is 0-point energy. Space energy. Quack, quack. Space energy. That's the answer. These guys have been writing about it. Hal's been writing about it. His right-hand man, Eric Davis. Hal is the one that the DIA commissioned the Defense Intelligence Reference Documents from. So Hal Puthoff, the DIA went to Hal Puthoff, and they were like, hey, we want to get the best scientific papers that are out there. I'm going to get the list for you guys here. I think this is it right here. Yep, here they are. So Hal Puthoff goes to all his black project engineer buddies, and he has them all write the papers. Now, let's look at the list. Like, this was the thing. Now, guys, look at this from my perspective. I'm just digging into this, and the more I dig into this, I'm finding connections everywhere. And I'm not trying to put connections together that I don't think fit together. But you find these scientists. By the way, most of the interviews that I watch come from Dr. Greer, Stephen Greer's Disclosure Archive. So he does deserve some credit. But he's taken it way too far for me to align with him on some of this stuff. But he does deserve some credit. Now, let's just look at who wrote some of these papers. Dr. George Miley, Inertial Electrostatic Confinement Fusion. That sounds a lot like cold fusion to me. Advanced Nuclear Propulsion for Manned Deep Space Missions. Look, there's our Project Paperclip scientist right there. Friedbert Winterberg. There he is, right there. He wrote one of the DIRDs. So now I'm like looking at these people and I'm going, okay, anybody on this list, you are in my crosshairs. Pulsed high power microwave technology, Dr. James Wells, Northrop Grumman. Also notice where these people are aligned to. Some of these people are just like, they're not even aligned with an academic university. They're just straight up like black project engineers exclusively. Look at this one, Space Access by Dr. Paul Siz. This is exactly the guy we were just watching in the video about the hypersonics with the cold plasma. There he is right there, Space Access. You guys starting to see the connections? Look, this is space-time metric engineering. This is the one that Tim Burchett was holding up, saying, if you want to get in some light reading, you can check this one out. And this is Dr. Hal Puthoff, the guy we were just listening to right there. Wormholes in space-time, Eric Davis. Eric Davis is the world's leading expert in warp drives and wormholes. And he looks like the world's leading expert in warp drives and wormholes. He looks like he never left the 80s and he just stayed in the 80s. And I love every minute of it. That's exactly what I want my wormhole expert to look like. And I want my wormhole expert to be American as well. So checks all the boxes. If we get into a battle with the aliens or whatever, call up Eric Davis. He'll help us wormhole or give them a computer virus or whatever we got to do to, save the time continuum. Now, this next one here, gravity wave communication. This is Robert M.L. Baker. You guys probably don't know who this guy is, but he goes by Bob Baker. He's got like over a dozen papers on gravity waves, like laboratory produced gravity waves. And he's Lockheed Martin, former Lockheed Martin. The next one is George Hathaway. I'm surprised I didn't recognize George Hathaway before. If you go to George Hathaway's website, he's testing all these exotic concepts like negative energy lasers and some of the electrostatic confined fusion, the Casimir cavity stuff. He's apparently testing all this. Like everything that I researched, this was the weirdest part. We had been researching this stuff for months on end, finding all these like negative energy lasers, all this stuff, finding out that it's all real. And then we go find this guy, George Hathaway. I forget how we found his website. And his website is covered in all of these experiments. Like reading through it, it was just bizarre. Like you can tell right away after researching this, like this guy, he knows, he's like in the movies, they've got like their own like guy who engineers their super suits and stuff like that. Like that's George Hathaway. He's like hiding in the shadows over here on the side, and he's making the super suits for people in his private lab. More Eric Davis. Then you've got Kit Green on here as well. Another George Hathaway paper. Some people probably know who some of these other people are. I don't happen to know them. So anyway, point being, and then the last one here is called aneutronic fusion as well, which is basically another way to say cold fusion. And there's another Lockheed Martin guy. So you look at those papers and you realize, okay, these guys were not lightweights. We've got defense contractor engineers on here. We've got people who are like producing gravity waves in labs. And the other big piece of evidence that we have to throw on here is Salvatore Pais's patents. Now, the DIRDs, like I'm going to put it up again because it's so important. Like if you are trying to explain this to people who are academics or non-believers, you bring up the DIRDs to people. You go, here are the Defense Intelligence Reference Documents. These were classified documents that got declassified on like January. And look, in 2018, not even that long ago, they got declassified in 2018. And they revealed these. And we've been talking about these engineers. I didn't even realize most of the people that I spoke about earlier today, I did not know they were the authors of these papers when I found them. So yes, we're now starting to realize there are a lot of connections. I don't have time to play the whole clip tonight because we've been going for a while, but I will just show you Bob Grenier. This is a big clip. Now imagine again in my shoes.
Saw the Jeremy Reese.
That I've got this guy making a video about me. I have no idea if it's going to be a bad video, a good video, if he's going to say the video is obviously fake or what have you. It turns out to be this guy, Bob Grenier, and he's one of the few but world-leading experimental testers for people that claim to produce cold fusion, to produce over unity via cold fusion. So basically, he's low energy nuclear reactions expert because they've renamed cold fusion. And I'm sitting here wondering, what I want to say is that when this video dropped, I'm wondering, why does this guy want to review the videos? I didn't understand it at all. I didn't understand how cold fusion fit into any of this. What I learned over the journey is that cold fusion is basically tapping into the 0-point energy. It's the simplest, most natural way to create a battery that taps into the 0-point energy perpetually. The most efficient way, which can produce far more energy out than what it takes to tap it, to pump it, to tap into it. And that's what they've realized long ago, is that that level of knowledge and information is dangerous. It's dangerous to their profit margin. It's dangerous to the status quo. And it's also potentially dangerous to the universe. Now, when I first heard this video, Bob Grenier, I did not know that. I did not know that. So, and he was under pressure to not bring up the videos, because if these videos are fake and he's tying his expertise to the videos, it would seem silly if it were to turn out that this was some kind of hoax. But he had no choice because he could see the heat signatures. He could see the non-radiating barrier.
And that enables all of the funky magic that these things can do. Often we are seeing, and maybe, I don't know if I can zoom in, I can't zoom in. We are seeing the non-radiating boundary, and you can go and look at this video itself, but inside that there is a much smaller thing, and it does tend to be offset. And we have this little tuft of thing at the top, right? Now I'm going to go back to the monopole in the glowy bit. And
so what Bob's saying here too is that when you deal with this physics related to 0-point energy and cold fusion, you're often dealing with like a vortex interaction. Just like if you were to pull the plug on your bathtub and you see the vortex, or a whirlpool in the water, is that Bob's saying that that's what we expect to see happen here. And he was researching some of the same papers I was researching back then as well, but he has already been aware of basically every paper that I found. He also found a patent by Lockheed Martin called Coherent Matter Wave Beam that he thinks could produce some of this. And the size of the patent was like 10 microns in length. So you couldn't even see it. It wouldn't even be like small enough to fit on your nail.
Aalto University, peer-reviewed.
And so he's saying that when you manipulate this space-time, you can create a magnetic monopole, something that has only to date been thought to be theoretical, which would be one side of a magnet. You just imagine it like a black hole, sucking everything in, not releasing anything. A magnet, one side, a monopole.
Published.
I still think monopole is important to understand this like higher dimensional topography. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing is how do they stabilize the ball of plasma?
Structure. So the monopole would be at this point. The toroidal moment would be going out this way, and you can see the dark area in front. So it's cohering energy from here. Okay. So this is traveling in this direction, and it's cohering energy from in front of it.
This is the only thing I disagree with Bob, is that he thought that it is pulling the energy from the environment where you see the hot electrons. And I would argue it doesn't even need to do that. It doesn't even need to. But it is sucking energy with the laser, I'm going to assume, is coming in front of it, that produces the dark lines that it follows.
And that comes into what I call the Borg. Yeah, it becomes part of the collective. There, this is very, very clear. Okay, so the monopole's location is here. This is the non-radiating boundary. Okay.
So he's saying that basically it's creating a little black hole inside of there, and that creates an umbrella. That creates an umbrella. Little black hole creates this umbrella, and now you've stabilized your ball of plasma. You've got a ball of plasma. It's stable. The only trick that you need to pull off now is you need to be able to remote control it. If you can remote control it, then you can do everything you see in these videos. So this showing that this heat signature is actually relevant in cold fusion was massive for these videos. Because now not only do we connect it to a missing airliner that's still missing today right now, still missing. Now we can connect it to an entire disgraced area of physics, which turns out we need some missing area of physics to explain what we're seeing in these videos, to explain negative energy. And we found it in the form of 0-point energy. Now let's look at one more video here of Paul Sis, the same guy that was talking about the hypersonic planes earlier today. Actually, let me just play this for a little bit longer.
This is the phase inversion. The dark area above will be where it's cohering energy, and you will have the disruption beam coming in to the monopole at the bottom here. So when I saw this video, it was like, well, to fake this one back in 2014 showed incredible understanding of technology that no one had an understanding outside of the black world, even if there was anyone that had an understanding in the black world. To fake this one and have the thermal imaging correctly representing and the non-radiating boundary and everything is beyond imagining. Here, if that doesn't tell you you've got your Ukon of Asara there, I don't know what will, right? It looks like this, okay? That is the bit that changes epsilon 0, okay? The permittivity.
When he's saying epsilon 0, he's saying it's changing the permittivity of space-time, changing the speed of light in space-time. He's saying they're making a bubble. The plasma is making a bubble. So when people are out there asking you, and you want to sound smart, they're saying, hey, what's up with these UFO drones? Well, if it's just a bright thing flying around in the sky and it's really a UFO, it's not Venus or a star or whatever, it's probably this. Because these things are literally pulling light straight out of the vacuum. That's what this says right here. They're pulling light straight out of the vacuum using the dynamic Casimir effect. You break the Schwinger limit, you can cause dynamic Casimir effect, observed real photons, light coming out of the ether. So they can be luminous in this case.
Okay, and it's pulling it in here. It's correctly facing forward as it is at the moment. And so what you would want to do is you would want to bring these in, get them into their alignment, get them tracking the device accurately, get them equidistant, and then what you would do is you would rotate their orientation so their toroidal moments link up and make a super tor that would then have its azimuth going through the center of the craft that you are wanting to either disappear or teleport. If you reduce the overall diameter of the tor -1, the field strength both in the tor -1 and through the azimuth goes up exponentially, and this is already experimentally proven. If we generally get accepted that this is technologically possible. We have the most incredible future ahead of us. Just the most incredible future.
So imagine that is a cold fusion expert just looking at it and going, wow, this fits. What I'm seeing is exactly what I would have experimentally expected to see on, or that I have experimentally seen on smaller scales, but that this stuff is all scale invariant. The size doesn't change anything. Just the effects can be scaled up. So actually, I want to follow it up with this video, rare video of Ken's shoulders.
Positive things that can be used for.
You name something you want.
So this is Ken's shoulders on the right. The guy on the left is John Hutchinson. And Ken's shoulders is getting asked, this is the guy that was Hal Puthoff's right-hand man. The guy that figured out permittivity transitions, this plasma can change and manipulate space-time. The guy on the right being asked, what can these EVOs, what can these balls of plasma do?
That's good, and it'd probably be the thing that does it for you. If you say anti-gravity, propulsion properties are just incredible. It will be able to push anything you want, anywhere you want. It enshrouds stuff. This is all written in some of these things on the web. When it enshrouds things, it can allow them to disappear. It does make atoms disappear in laboratory work. Well, that's interesting, you know, because when they disappear, I can transport all this stuff through somewhere else, and it reappears. That's teleportation. So it does that very nicely. It's an energy source, just incredible. We can forget all of our energy problems. We can forget all of our propulsion problems.
Well, imagine if you're out there and this is the first time you're watching this. Now realize you've been researching all this stuff. It's led you to Ken's shoulders. It's led you to Hal Puthoff. It's led you to Bob Grenier and Salvatore Pais. And now you find this video where Ken's shoulders is just like, oh, yeah, you can teleport stuff with this. Yep. Can teleport stuff, and as an energy source, it's incredible. You're just like, what? There's another clip that I don't have where Ken's shoulders gets asked about cold fusion. And Ken's shoulders basically says they're all doing it wrong. All of them are doing it wrong. None of them are doing it anywhere close to the most efficient way. And what he's getting at is you should be trying to produce cold fusion with a plasma. You shouldn't be trying to do it with like metal in water. It's just stupid. I mean, it might work, but it's just not an efficient way to do it. Going to the source of cold plasma is better because it's already in the electrical form. It's already electrical at that point. The other thing is, how did I find Hal Puthoff? One of Sal's papers, I think it's the gravity wave paper. The problem is some of these guys, he doesn't name his paper the right thing. High frequency. Let me see. Yeah, I don't have it handy. So Sal, I think it's Sal's gravity wave paper. It references Hal Puthoff's gravity is a 0-point fluctuation force. I showed that paper earlier. That's how I got on board with, finding all that stuff about 0-point energy. So Salvatore Pais's patents are just as huge. I've speculated that the patents for Salvatore Pais, that they were potentially only allowed to be released because maybe China had already figured it out. So this gets us to one of our last topics on the night, which is that does China have this stuff? Does China have it? Well, if you look at some of these papers that are published, because some of these patents have papers that go along with them, China has been referencing some of these patents, including the plasma compression fusion device right here. So we got plasma compression fusion device, seems like a cool thing. Electromagnetic field generator, how to produce a very powerful electromagnetic field. That might be useful for like the dynamic Casimir effect or teleporting something. Craft using inertial mass reduction device. These are all supported by the United States Navy, by the way, guys. And it turns out I've now said that the U.S. Navy is the one that took MH370, and people have speculated the U.S. Navy has been involved in UFO technology as well. Okay? So some very, very important patents. Now, let me hit these donations because you guys have been popping off. How would you use it for surveillance? Now, I'm glad that I waited here because now, two things. One, you could have a device in there. I think that they have a laser inside of this device shooting, projecting outward. So you could have a surveillance device connected to it, and then it could just wirelessly upload that information just like any type of surveillance device. So imagine it's like a satellite, but it's a drone, and it can just scan anywhere. The other thing is about the unlimited payload. The Pentagon took this Hal Puthoff and Ken Shoulders technology. They called it condensed charge technology very seriously in the early 90s. Basically, condensed charge, they're saying that these balls of plasma, when you separate the electrons out and you create this cold plasma, it has a huge amount of energy in it. Way more than any electrical system can handle without short-circuiting or melting. But because of how you stabilize this ball of plasma, you've got a ball of lightning, just massive energy. So this is a payload. You could just zap that down into somebody. And as we saw in the MH370 videos, if you zap multiple of them together, just like Ken Shoulders was saying, poof, maybe you teleport. Maybe you go to the next dimension or to your Lord and Savior. I don't know. But it's very dangerous because there's no stopping this. That technology can't be stopped, at least as far as I know. Hopefully we've invented some way to stop it. Straight dope. Thank you for spreading the word, Ashton. Look around, people. This stuff is being figured out now by the people in their garage, the real deal truth. Yeah, and this is just straight up old school investigative journalism. I've spoken to journalists, behind the scenes and stuff. I don't really talk about that, but, and yes, we're doing, like, in some cases, better research than they're doing. In some cases, they're good, but yeah. GT, I think one of the reasons for them disappearing the plane rather than letting the plane crash could be because the last thing the holders of this tech want is it being out in the ocean. Yeah, I actually thought about this too. Thank you for that donation. I appreciate it. There could be something on the plane that they want as well, right? They don't want them to get the cargo either. Could be a thing. It could be that the fire, like maybe it did more damage than they were expecting. Like maybe they thought that people were going to survive from the fire and they didn't. I don't know. There's still, this is what I tell people too, is that when it comes to the MH370 videos, there's still something there's something missing about the story. Like it's pretty much all there, I think. But there's something else missing regarding the story. But the fact that the videos present this narrative of the fire event that was basically ignored, just completely, no one even talked about the fire, possibility of a fire. The fact that videos support that narrative, which is just like this dark horse narrative, that's huge. Because then we found all the evidence, including the witnesses. There was a Mayday call. It seems like they absolutely classified communications that happened. Like they knew that this plane was in distress. And that's the thing, is that like we've got these people over the barrel. We know they're lying. We know they must have classified communications. They know the plane was in distress. And there's a lot of people that are lying about this cover-up. This is the reason why you don't see anybody talk about the case at all. If they thought this was a joke, they would be making fun of me on every single news station, public news station that's out there. Like they did with the kid with the aliens in Vegas. They took him back a year later and laughed at him, blah, blah, blah. You didn't see it, blah, blah, blah. They don't do that with me because people would look at the evidence and go, wait, holy shit, there was a cover-up. There definitely was a cover-up. And then people are going to wonder, wait, are those videos that everybody tells me must be fake? Maybe those aren't. Maybe those aren't actually fake. Maybe those, like, the best evidence we could ever hope for to solve the mystery of the missing airplane. Just maybe, guys. If we have anti-gravity technology, if it's ever revealed to us, doesn't it go beyond physics and science, like a breakthrough in science? Yeah, a little bit. That's the part where it's like it starts to get ontological in terms of like, how have they been hiding this? Why? What are the pros and cons? And those are the conversations I like having with people. Like Jason Giorgiani interview is great because we dug into all that. Like, can we actually survive if we have this technology? Or do we literally have to become some sort of cyborg collectivist type species? Like, let's just talk about it. Figure out like, what is the answer? Because that's our future. Maybe not now, maybe not 5 years from now, but 100 years from now, 500 years from now, that's our future. Have you heard of, I don't know what this means. Is that Squid Game? 1,000 talents plan in relation to plane. I don't know what that means. Thank you for that donation. I have no idea what that means. I can't read emoji. Rabbit hole. If the mainstream doesn't accept that what actually happened at MH370, then they can always call the flight's disappearance the Ashton X Forbes effect. They can call it whatever they want. Appreciate it, Rabbit hole. Thank you very much, man. If I saw this in 10 years ago, that was in 2014. No, the videos were available on the internet 10 years ago, and they just got ignored. We found many different sources that date back 10 years. But the earliest one is this regicide one, and it was out there way before all the rest. So we think that's the original source, or that person was in contact with somebody that leaked it. We could never get a hold of any of those people in general. But I saw it like that summer, I saw that one video, and I just dismissed it like everybody did. That's the crazy part, is that only now, 10 years later, with all of what we've learned, right? All that UFO stuff, just more information in general. That's allowed us to realize that what we see in those videos can actually be real. It can be this suppressed physics that the government's been hiding maybe since the 40s, the Manhattan Project. That's what this is. That's what this 0-point energy represents. Is this 0-point energy is the secret. That's what they're hiding. That's why when you talk to a mainstream NPC, I can tell you exactly what their programming is going to be. Their programming is, no, 0-point energy either doesn't exist, or they'll say it's just some small amount of energy. And then you will say, well, no, it's not. We've got the experimental evidence. Richard Feynman says there's enough energy in this cup to boil all those oceans. And then they'll say, well, there's no way to extract it. There's no way to get the energy out of it, which is kind of absurd. That's like saying there's no way to make a windmill. There's no way to make a solar panel. Of course there is. You just have to learn how to interact with it, and then you can make any of those things. But you're going to hear that from the normie NPC people. So now you know how to respond. You just say that, it's not this tiny amount of energy. Yes, it's this huge amount. And Robert Forward in 1984 showed that we can use this Casimir effect, which is giving us free energy out of the 0-point energy. We can use that to power a battery, which then you could use that to do anything, right? So basically just proving that we can get energy out of it. And the big holdup, get this. So you ask the question, okay, this Robert Forward guy showed that we can get energy out of it. So the next thing he starts working on is, how can I get perpetual energy out of it? Because these plates come together, you have to pull them apart. So how do we fix that? And I've been saying, you got to find an engineering solution. So Robert Forward was looking for some kind of spinning system where the plates would come back apart. The answer is plasma. Plasma is the answer. Plasma is the answer. The way they think the electrons are sticking together, Casimir effect. They think the Casimir effect is what's causing that. So the plasma was the answer to your perpetual extraction of energy. Just use a plasma. The plasma is actually manipulating the fabric of space and time. It's cheating in a way. So everything seems to come back to plasma, and then these floating drones of plasma, and then using this terminology of drones. I'll just do the SpongeBob squawk. Drones. Using drones to distract us from, like, what kind of drones are we talking about here? Are we talking about some kind of drone that's like a ball of plasma, or are we talking about a drone like a hobbyist drone off the shelf? I think they're using this coded language so that we don't get to the right answers. Medicinal dad jokes. You can see the heat moving in the thermal imaging as it rotates around the planes in direction of the plasma channel. Is that the flow of electrons on the positive and negative side? The orbs are spinning on their axis, or whatever's inside of them is spinning. And that's the reason why you're seeing the heat signature shift directions. There might be something more complicated happening as well, to be perfectly honest with you. But it looks like it's a vortex motion that's being used to stabilize the ball of plasma. That's what we think the heat signature must represent. So just to repeat that, the heat signature must represent some type of vortical or stabilization motion that's being used to keep this ball of plasma as a ball of plasma. Otherwise, what we would expect to happen is this ball of plasma that we see is going to fall apart. And this is also the reason why after the zap, the person does this slow-mo. They do this. There's this stabilized slow-mo version of the orbs like that you're seeing right here. This is all from the original. They wanted us to see that right there. Because when you see that, you go, okay, that's a ball of plasma. I'm not looking at, like, that's not a metal ball I'm seeing. If somebody was hoaxing this video, this is the last thing they would add. So anyway, there you go. Cold fusion. Cold fusion's cool. So yes, probably, but yes, in general, it's just the flow of electrons. And we learned from digging into the cold plasmas, and I want to play 2 more clips, that the electrons are the hot part on these cold plasmas. So the electrons are going to be the hot part in those videos as well, which goes to show, like, man, you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot from some of these videos. Okay. So here's one that supports that.
Way to see what the Weiss effect is all about is to say it's really the generation of extremely high energy densities that are obtained by the accelerated vibration and or accelerated spin of a non-equilibrium plasma. That means the plasma that's out of equilibrium. You can think of that. They have a term for it called cold plasma. Cold, as in, non-thermal plasma, and it really has to do with the electrons of this plasma that talks to the plasma density very high. The number of these electrons do not observe something called a Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution.
So Sal's saying right there, and back then I had no idea, that hot fusion is a scam. He's saying hot fusion is a scam. The Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution, where we're trying to heat it up to make fusion happen, big scam. He's saying cold non-equilibrium plasmas. Boom. You just heard it right there. That was the man with the patents. Would you get electrocuted? I'm not sure. I'm not touching it. I'm not trying to warp my hand through space-time, but you can. We'll learn more about that in the future, but that was a good question. Justin, thank you very much. Were you aware that the interview with Inspire Nation, December 30th, Greer claimed that some of the drones originated from China before the Livelsberger incident? I mean, I've been saying it too. I've been saying I think some of these drone incursions are adversaries using anti-gravity tech just to show us that they have it. Man, I just saw another donation here. Rabbit hole. Someone should check to see if there was an increase in food shipments to Diego Garcia during that time or after. Yeah, all that information, like, I was destroyed in some water damage that happened. True story. Mark, wow. Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate those donations. You don't need to go crazy, but I do appreciate you, man. I do appreciate you with these. It's very, very nice of you, man. Thank you. Wool Johnson, thank you for that super sticker. Appreciate you, brother. Duppy, please expand on the term vacuum. There are 2 meanings. Yeah, there is really no true vacuum. Like the space-time as a medium. So if space-time is a medium, then you can manipulate the medium. Just like in an ocean, you can pull the water out of the ocean. You leave a gap there. Now the water is going to fill in. Same thing is true of energy in the vacuum. And that's why when we see the MH370 video, look at how fast the vacuum corrects itself. So if this video is real, then realize this is happening within 0.2 seconds. So we've ripped a hole in the fabric of the vacuum and it instantly closes up. So we're pulling all this energy out, but it instantly comes back up, like within a fraction of a second. So it's interesting to think of it more of like a trampoline. Boing, boing, boing. That's how I imagine the 0 point energy all around us all the time, which changes everything about physics. Changes it all, if that's true. Thank you very much for that donation. How do you see the video of the plane 10 years ago prior to it happening? So I think that you're a little confused. I didn't see it prior to it happening. The videos came out right after the plane disappeared. Right after the plane disappeared, 2014, and then the videos got popular again last year. And that's when all this came up. So for the people that think like, oh, was Ashton the person that made the videos or whatever? Like, guys, I'm not in some weird 10-year long con. Nobody made these videos. These videos are leaked from the U.S. military, like 100%. Nobody randomly knew about how all these surveillance systems work. And no, I didn't make these videos. I would have no way to make these videos. You can literally watch all my live streams and see that I've literally learned how all this stuff works in real time over the last year. So there we go. Thank you very much, John, for that donation. Appreciate you, brother. Skull, thank you very much. Yeah, I do think there might be AI at play here on these videos, especially when you watch the satellite video. It looks like it has to be AI controlling this, at least to me, watching this. Like that, to me, that looks like AI. I don't have a better explanation. Wired Talk with Big G. New here, watching your letter to Ashton Forbes video where you implied that's not me, by the way. I did not make that video. All I did was add graphics to it. Somebody sent me this letter to Ashton Forbes video. You guys can find it on my channel. And it's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. So that's probably one of the best things to talk about here. And then I want to do one more science video for you guys. So after I had been researching this and researching the science a little bit, this letter to Ashton Forbes video makes it onto the internet. People bring it to my attention. I listen. Wow. I really don't think that even my most ardent supporters could have come up with that letter. It's not, an AI did not write the letter. An AI is speaking the letter, and it could be a voice changer AI, or it could just be that they transcribed it and had the AI read it. I don't know. Not sure. But that letter basically presents the whole narrative of the black operation that the United States did to the plane, to MH370, why they did it, related to the Freescale semiconductor engineers. Basically, everything that I had been saying connects it all together. And to me, that was the biggest oh wow moment, but I was also highly guarded because I had been kind of stabbed in the back by people, had people scamming me and things like that. As time has gone on, I'm more and more convinced that that letter is legit. Now, it doesn't mean that everything said in the letter to Ashton Forbes is real. Just means that I think the overall story they were painting the picture for is legit, that this was some type of espionage, counter-espionage, 6th generation warfare, which is now warfare over space and time itself. Think about that. Warfare over space and time itself. 6th generational warfare. We were doing this as a message to China, not just to stop the engineers, but as a message to them that we have this advanced technology that's out there. So That's what I think that the whole story of this is about, which is why that letter by the special operations guy that we talked about at the beginning of this video is so weird. Because the whole story that I uncovered that the letter to Ashton Forbes talks about is that we are basically preventing China from getting this technology. That we've got this orb tech that I've shown over and over and over again, and that the payload is potentially infinite. The payload could destroy the entire solar system. The payload on that is whatever they want it to be. If they can teleport a Boeing 777, then the sky's the limit. Your imagination's the limit for the capability of that weaponry. And of course, we're weaponizing it. Thank you, Chaotic Good. I'm not a two-bit whore. Not a two-bit whore out here. So when I read that letter, I thought, okay, wow, this is very powerful. Now, let me show you one more clip here as well. I think anyone that it still doesn't make sense for people, then I'd say, like, you know, you gotta just watch it again until it sinks in. Here you go. Here's Paul
When we
Sizz
talk
again.
about zero-point energy, what that means is that when everything comes down to rest, there's still energy left. It's like sea level in the ocean. And there is a constant flow of energy between matter and antimatter as it annihilates itself and recreates itself. It occurs in stars. All of these big star factories you see now with Hubble is a continual exchange of energy. And although the average is zero, that zero may be a pretty high level above nothing at all. And what Sakharov and some of the physicists said is that it's this level that creates the background for the universe to exist. You know, there are people who have been experimenting with zero-point energy or try to tap zero-point energy for years. Every once in a while, someone will do it accidentally. They'll call it cold fusion, but I don't think it's cold fusion. I just think it's a zero-point energy tap.
Sakharov. If you've been paying attention on this stream, you've heard me call Sakharov's name. Paul Sizz right there. Name drop Sakharov. Russian hydrogen bomb developer, physicist. And then he also says, cold fusion, they call it cold fusion, it's just a zero-point energy tap. There's Paul Sizz, same guy that explained the plasma hypersonic flight, same guy that wrote one of the DIRDs, the Defense Intelligence Reference Documents. There he is right there, straight up explaining zero-point energy and what it can do.
Except for 3 people that I know, if given the right, that's a possibility. Is like an ocean and gravity waves exist, and the quantum is now not mass, but introduced an ability to tap. Zero-point energy represents about 40 to 50 megawatts of power per cubic inch of space.
That's a lot of power. Now, this guy knows. I can just tell he knows. I really wish I had been able to meet him before he passed away in like 2013. I can just tell he's a legend from listening to him. Now, let's listen to what his thoughts are on why we're hiding it. Now, we've established this guy knows what he's talking about. He figured all this stuff out way before. I didn't even know who he was. And then I found this video and I'm like, oh, okay. There's all these scientists just openly talking about it. Now let's hear, why are we hiding it?
That's a lot of power. That's 4,600 million watts of power. And if you could tap it at will, then no one would have to sell gasoline or oil anymore. You would just tap into it. It would be like taking and going out to the Great Lakes and taking out one drop and using it. You'd hardly miss it. the people that, if there are a group of people in the world that have access to it, I don't think they know how to let go of it because they're afraid who's going to get their hands on it. Even though there'd be tremendous benefit to mankind in getting us energy sources that we wouldn't have the problems we have with today, they're also worried about that somebody could take that same energy source and do the equivalent of what they did with the coal, of instead of blowing a hole inside, just obliterating the whole ship.
He's talking about the USS Cole at the end there. And he's basically saying not only would this change and destroy society and capitalism as we know it, but also this can be turned into a weapon. Yes, unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. So you find all of this, you find these videos, you realize somebody like me was not a conspiracy theorist. Someone like me never really cared about aliens. I thought they could exist. But I quickly realized our government has been hiding technology from us. Now, did they get it from the aliens? I don't know. I don't know, and I don't care. Truthfully, I don't know, and I don't care. All I know is that we've got the technology. If we reverse engineered it, we've been successful. If we figured it out, then the aliens thing was a great psyop to protect it and make it seem like it's this alien technology and we can't understand it. I'm not sure. Let me hit up a couple donations. ZPE and AI seem like a match made in heaven. Yes. And this is why I'm so afraid about AI. Is that when you have infinite energy, now energy is the ultimate limiter when it comes to AI, especially when it hits singularity. Basically, that's the only thing slowing it down is how much energy you can access. So if you give it infinite energy, yeah, we're probably cooked. We're probably cooked. First time, long time here. Have you been approached by the new administration? No, nobody ever really approaches me. It's sad. Favorite video game? Chrono Trigger or Red Dead Redemption 2. Both great games. Chaotic Good. Thank you very much. The Ashton is not horror grifting super fun. Thank you very much, Chaotic Good. Appreciate you, girl. Okay, and then my guy who's Russian or Czech or something. What was the original channel that posted the video? Regicide Anon. Regicide Anon. Somebody posted in the chat from a man, Regicide Anon. We actually have a link somewhere of all evidence. If you want to read through it, it has links to all the where the videos are from, everything we were able to deduce from the videos. It got so long that even without all the hyperlinks, it was just tedious to get through. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have to touch on? I think that's mostly it, guys. So let me pull the pieces together for you guys. We got Hal Puthoff writing about 0 point energy. This guy's connected to spook stuff, connected to the government, connected to the black projects. We got his partner, Ken Shoulders, talking about plasmoids can make stuff disappear. Together, their condensed charge plasma stuff got given like some of the highest priority by the Pentagon for research. Hal Puthoff also has a patent. Hal Puthoff's patent is a quantum communication patent that can go through plasma. No, I'm not making this up. Let me repeat that. Hal Puthoff, he only has like one patent that's been approved 5 different times. And it's all about being a quantum communication patent with no electric and magnetic fields, aka scalar potential, like Tom Bearden was saying. And it goes through salt water and plasma. So if you need a device, an ability to communicate through a ball of plasma, Hal Puthoff happens to have the patent that you would need. So I feel like I'm not pushing the boundaries here, just connecting a couple dots. The Navy and Salvatore Pais have all the patents that you need to make a plasma ball. Ken Shoulders and Hal Puthoff in the early 90s were building plasma balls that you can pull energy out of them, and communication devices where you can communicate with the ball of plasma. In the 60s, we were making hypersonic planes that were using plasma sheaths They were pulling the planes along faster than should be physically possible. So it seems like we've turned these plasma sheath, into a ball or a drone of plasma that we can fly around. And thank you, Lauren, for being here tonight. So that is the theory that fits with the MH370 videos being real. It fits with all the historical evidence about this type of technology. It fits with what these engineers and defense contractors have been saying on videos for decades now. Decades. A lot of the videos I showed you go back 20, 30 years or more. And the key part is this. There isn't another answer. What is causing the UFOs to float? It's 0 point energy. It's 0 point energy. There's nothing inside of the UFO, because any more mass you add to the UFO for fuel slows you down. So you quickly run into a problem where you need an outside fuel source. The 0 point energy is the answer. 0 point energy is the outside fuel source. And there isn't another thing. There's no other options. Like, it's just 0 point energy. When you start to dig into it and you go into physics, it's not like there's like 20 different options that it can be. You just find out that 0 point energy was always the answer, and that cold fusion is just a tap. It's a tap, an efficient tap into the 0 point energy field, where you're pulling the energy out much more efficiently than spinning a copper coil through a magnetic wire, which is what we do right now. That's easy. So this is the reason why people are listening to me. I just want people to know, whether or not you believe me or not, that I'm not doing any of this for money or fame or glory or what have you. But obviously, I've been doing this for over a year now. And now I am deciding whether or not I want to do this as my primary job, or whether or not I do my primary job. For now, I've decided I want to focus on my other job, my current job, because I don't really know. I don't really know what I want to do long term. But I do enjoy these live streams. I do enjoy making content for you guys. But do realize that I am living two worlds right now. And this one is fun, but the other one is one that I've been doing for 20 years, my whole life as well. So it's a big decision for me for digging into this stuff. And I'm absolutely not trying to use this case as some type of opportunity to make a name for myself or make money. No. The only reason why I do push memorabilia related to the case is because I don't want anybody to forget about this. I don't want anybody to forget about the plane. I don't want anybody to forget about what we did to the plane, because I do realize that it's the type of thing that it seems impossible. It seems impossible. It seemed impossible to me as well. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized that it is real, but it's so outlandish, so beyond the paradigm, that you're never going to be able to convince everybody. Might not even be able to convince half the people on this planet. That's just the hard truth. It's just so impossible to accept. So we need to fight on a different level. We can't fight fair. They have no chance of winning this battle of disclosure fighting fair. We have to be able to do what the American revolutionaries did and win at any and all cost, whatever's required. If that means trolling people, burning bridges with people, then so be it. If that means using memes as a method of propaganda to get the information out there, so be it. The adversary will stop at nothing to prevent this information from getting out. And you say, well, why would you say all that? Well, because they already know everything that I'm doing here. And the last thing I want to say is this, is that I've built up this organization for a reason. And that reason is exactly what you guys are doing right now. And you guys have been amazing. Is that we are pushing disclosure forward. We're making people react to our content. Podcasters are reacting to it. And we're so lucky to have Candace Owens on our side. Absolutely. We needed to win at least one of the big three. Candace, Rogan, Sean Ryan. We needed to win one of them over. And we won over the best one. Why? Because Candace Owens isn't an alien person. Joe Rogan's an alien guy. Sean Ryan's the guy that only speaks to spooks. Candace Owens is like the dark horse. Nobody expected Candace Owens to be interested in advanced government technology. And she is. And since we know the stuff is real, we know that more and more stuff is going to corroborate it. So having Candace Owens be a voice out there is great. It's great. I couldn't be more grateful, honestly. But I'm also realizing we're going to have to win over more people, too. We're going to have to win over more people. And it's going to be awkward. It's going to be awkward with Sean Ryan, or it's going to be awkward with Joe Rogan. There's no way around it. It's going to be awkward. But what I'll say is I made a post earlier today or yesterday talking about the orbs. This is probably going to be the next domino to fall. This is why it's important, is that what the orbs are doing to the temperature of the atmosphere when they're cooling it with their line going in front of the orbs, that will be confirmed either by some of these woke disclosure UFO people or through some other video that will leak or get shown on to the public. We're going to find that the physics on display in the videos, which I'll show you another clip of it, because it's hard to see unless you look at a color changed version. This physics will be the next thing that gets confirmed. Just look closely at those orbs. Look closely at the dark line in front of them. That's a cold event, not hot, cold. There's going to be something that's going to confirm this, and then people can come running back to MH370 videos and Ashton Forbes, because we're going to find out they're using some form of propulsion that is endothermic propulsion. Basically, they're creating a little black hole in front of them in real time. And this is what I've been saying all along, which is why people freak out, is that, like, I know these videos are real. And as hopefully I've convinced you guys, my thought process for understanding the videos are real. And I understand why the people are hiding the videos. I get all of that as well. I understand what's at stake here and all of that. But we're going to find that all the stuff that gets revealed that's truthful information about this UFO phenomenon, we're going to find that it all supports those videos. We're going to find this triangle formation has a purpose. We're going to find that the dark line, the cold lines in front of the orbs has a purpose, the 0-point energy stuff. We're going to find that it's all true. So if you've just joined or you've been following along since the beginning, thank you very much for your support. And I think it's going to be a journey for you as well, the same way it's been a journey for all of us, where like feel like we're in this video game or this movie that's playing out in real time, this story playing out of disclosure, and we're just waiting for the next domino to fall. And then we'll be confirmed again. So last thing, I know I said last thing a few times, is thank you to all of MH370X. Thank you to all the podcasters and everybody who supported this, because it's a crazy story and not a lot of people will give it the attention that it deserves. And thank you, Matt Livelsberger. I believe that Matt Livelsberger was a whistleblower and a hero. He didn't take anybody else out with him. I don't know what happened, but biggest heartfelt thank you to our troops for all that the troops do to protect us, and to anybody out there that's a whistleblower for this exotic technology and information that is trying to come forward, but knows the dangers and the risks. Thank you for the true whistleblowers. Okay. Last few messages. Did you ever mention Edward C. Lin? I didn't mention him, but yeah, so that was another big piece, that the Edward C. Lin, finding out about Edward C. Lin, finding out he's connected to the Navy. Everything points back at the Navy now at this point. Edward C. Lin going into hiding. His lawyer not talking to me or anything like that. It's really sus, man. Edward C. Lin's the guy. Yes, you could use this as a defensive thing, or it could be offensive. I don't subscribe to any esoteric based methodologies at the moment. I just try to use all the evidence that I've based my story on is 100% based on hard evidence, and then in the case of the story, just based on whatever story fits the evidence the best. Red Pill, thank you very much. Have you ever interviewed Dr. Greer? No, but I probably will end up talking to him at some point because my path is going like this and Dr. Greer's up here somewhere and probably will intersect with him. I think that Dr. Greer and I will have a really good conversation. I think that'll be a big one. I think a lot of people will be interested in that. Thank you, Naya Official. Thank you for all the paper reviews from Malaysia. Appreciate you. Yeah, my heart goes out to the Malaysian people. They got screwed over the most. Basically, the Malaysian people got blamed for all of this, and turns out they deserve like no blame. Now their officials do, like the Minister of Defense and the Prime Minister Najib, like those guys deserve a lot of blame. But like the public, they don't deserve any of that. Eggnog Ski. Take a breather and do Red Dead 2 stream. Nah, although that'd be funny to do just a Red Dead 2 stream. Nah, I saw somebody doing that, but that was fun for them. Okay, guys, this was a good live stream. I do have some other podcasts that I'm planning to interview for other people and a bunch of appearances that people have asked me to go on. So, check out my socials for anything that's coming up. And I think we're going to have some good stuff. So should be fun, guys. Okay, guys, have a great night. I'm going to play us out. Peace out, everybody.
Infrared eyes, scanning the black, tracking the heat, never turning back. Control 22, a covert gaze. Control 33, in the cosmic maze. Controls in the mix, secrets untold. Silent watchers, brave and bold. In the shadows, they silently glide, protecting our interest, far and wide. As Spears, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to threats afar, guiding our defenses like a guiding star. In the silence of space, they keep their post, shields unseen yet feared the most. With precision and speed, they warn of danger, keeping us safe from the missile's anger. As Beers, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to threats afar, guiding our defenses like a guiding star. Controls in the mix, secrets untold, silent watchers, brave and bold. In the shadows, they silently glide, protecting our interest, far and wide. As Beers,